Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another show. As you can see, we're back in the old place again. Sometimes things happen, and we'll show up all over the place. I guess that's why they can call us the travelers. I guess you never know where we'll pop up at. We still ain't made it to the Bahamas yet, but maybe one of these days we'll make it there. Of course, as you saw there to to open up, we had the little brief in memorial there of Donnie McKenzie. I guess we could say that's a local legend. I mean, Donnie is, man. Well, you said it, in a comment the other day. I mean, there's never going to be another guy like that. And I mean, the county and the community and a lot of people from all over the place that ever had an opportunity to know Donnie is, they've lost a true legend there and a really good friend.
I first met Donnie when I was in Little League Baseball. This has been many, 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 many moons ago. I
That
played
was me
for
too.
I played for Elam Rexall Drug and his son Sean, whom I graduated with, who I have a good relationship with. He's a good guy. Um, we were always close. Uh, Thought the world of Donnie. I respected what he did. He was extremely active in the local community with regards to youth in Little League Baseball, and then, he also helped with high school football. He was there through numerous coaches. Starting with Bruce Herdman all the way to present day Mark Polo Easterling. Uh, Donnie's legacy will forever be etched in Morgan County history, simply as someone who had a servant's heart, gave everything that they possibly could to everybody within the local sports community with baseball and football. So, our prayers go out to his family, uh, his children, his grandchildren, and also prayers go out to the community itself because, for all those that knew Donnie, knew how special he was, a lot of kids now will just have to learn that through memories and people talking about the
Yeah,
legend, the icon.
yeah. You can't. It would be hard to ever mention um, any type of sports. Seems like anymore. Without mentioning Donnie. I mean, my son today, Aiden. He's like, I think I will. He said I look forward to going to the viewing tomorrow night. A lot of people don't look forward to going to viewings, obviously, but Aiden thought the world of Donnie. I mean, and it wasn't because he played sports, but it was because of the pool room. Aiden would go with me to the pool room, and one of his favorite things to do was go to Donnie's pool room and eat a fish sandwich. And that was one of the best fish sandwiches that you can ever eat. I mean, it's hard to beat that. I mean, you can't. So I mean, not only does Donnie's legacy go on, for sports, it goes on because of that pool room. A lot of people spent a lot of time at that pool room, and it was just a place for everybody to hang out. And he was always there. Well, just like in the picture here. Uh, would always have a smile on his face, would always welcome you in. I mean, it's
Big prankster,
yeah,
loved to joke,
yeah,
cut up, and
he
that's what made him the special person that he was. Um, I don't know if Donnie ever met a stranger. He was always willing to
that's
open
that's
up
that's
and
a fact. Yeah,
talk to anybody. So, the community mourns a great loss, and I don't know if we can ever
no,
have
I don't.
anybody replace what he means to this community.
Yeah, I don't think there's no. I don't think there's no replacing him. And just like what you mentioned too, I was first met Donnie a couple of years ago in Little League. Not as many years ago as yours, but pretty good while ago still.
Well, I did play with the dinosaurs.
But I got to meet Donnie. In Little League, him and Daryl Bradley. They were Daryl was like the PA system guy. He was, and Donnie was usually in the little concession stand. I mean, but they were always there. And if you needed your uniforms or anything like that, you went to Donnie's pool room, which used to sit down here. At the first red light as you start up into Main Street there before the tornado. Football, everything. I mean, softball, men's league softball. Anytime you needed a jersey, Donnie McKenzie, had it at the pool room, and you can go check it or go get it, and like you said, it's going to be a loss because at every sorghum bowl, wins and losses, Donnie was right on the field, and it's that's a treasure to this community.
Well, the
That's
field itself honors him.
Don McKenzie Field.
Don McKenzie Field. So I mean, that was something that took place many years ago and was much needed. The amount of time, effort, and heart that he put into to helping youth in this county to try to be the best they could. And when you weren't always playing to your best, Donnie was always there to give you a to lend an ear, to talk to you, try to build build your encouragement up and get you to play better. So like I said, a lot of kids are hurting in this community. A lot of adults are hurting in this community. We mourn the loss of an icon, but as I say this, Mike, I don't know if he'll ever be. You can't
No,
replace him, but he'll never
no.
be forgotten. The
He'll never be
memory of
forgotten.
what he did and what he
And
meant to this county.
I can honestly say on here tonight, it's been talked about. It's going to happen. I don't know if I'm supposed to let it out of the bag just yet, but I will anyway. Just for our viewers that are watching right now. But there will be a bronze statue of Donnie McKenzie built at the football field. One of our local contractors around here has already contacted the school system and said, "Do you think you guys will be interested?" And of course, we're going to be interested because the man's a legend. He needs a statue over there. So I mean, I don't know when that's coming down the line, but it is something that's coming. So we will have that. I saw Larry was watching a minute ago, and Donnie was big with men's league softball. When we've had a lot of memorial tournaments and stuff over the year, and Larry mentioned, maybe we can have a Donnie McKenzie memorial tournament or whatever. So I do look for something like that to happen. I don't know for sure on that one yet, but I do think something like that would be in the works. Later on down the road. Jacob says here there will never be another Donnie McKenzie. He was the heart of Cougar sports, and I never seen Donnie without a smile. And that's a fact. I don't know. It's going to be hard. I mean, if the pool room continues to run, to be able to walk into that pool room and Donnie not be there, it's like, they're going to have to put a picture like that, on the wall at the pool room where you can see when you walk in. Deb, on the other hand, she's sitting in the background, but I'm not going to let her out of this. She thinks she's going to get out of it. You're not on camera, so. But I want you to share your Donnie memories because I know you've got different Donnie memories than what me and Matt may have. So
I didn't hang out in the pouring much.
Well, you didn't have to.
When it was on Main Street, there by the bank, I didn't hang out there much. But I've ate some of Donnie's fish sandwiches.
You cannot beat that.
And
you cannot beat that.
My kids played t-ball and soccer.
And you had to go through Donnie McKenzie probably to get any of that done, right? So that's what I was.
Remember Donnie. Donnie was always good to my kids. He was always good to me. And Terry and Donna and Sean. I went to school with Sean. I think Sean's my nephew's age. So.
Jacob just said something that made chills go down my spine. He said, "Can you imagine the reunion in heaven right now with Daryl Bradley and Donnie McKenzie?" Yeah. That put chills down my spine because I can hear Daryl now with his world-renowned hot dog announcement. Now Donnie's going to be up there and say, "Well, your hot dogs ain't as good as my fish sandwiches." So I mean, but yeah.
I don't think you think of sports in Morgan County without
that. You can't.
But then I saw Wolf County and Round County lit up.
Oh yeah, as well, that is right. They lit up their lights on their football fields the night Donnie passed away in Wolf County. Wow, Wolf County don't have football, but it was their baseball complex there. And then I think it was the Rowan County football stadium. They lit the lights, and Morgan County did too. They lit the lights up, in honor of Donnie. And like I said, well, Deb just said it best. I don't think we'll ever be able to talk Morgan County sports, especially baseball and football, because that's where Donnie was. I'm not gonna say he wasn't never around with basketball because I didn't see him a whole lot, but I mean he probably was involved with that a lot too.
Bobby said Daryl and Donnie's probably riding around in a golf cart, no
doubt. No, I guarantee that. I guarantee. I mean, I'd like to actually hear those conversations. A lot of people don't know it. I mentioned a little bit of it the other day in my post on the day that he passed. Donnie was in the dugout the night of my senior year in baseball. We had had a lot of rainouts, so we had graduated the week before. So there wasn't no going to school the following week. If you get beat out of baseball, you're done. Your whole high school's done. And Donnie was with us. He was in the locker room, and you go back or in the locker room, in the dugout. You go back and watch. The highlight video that was put together for us there, and you can see Donnie in the dugout with us and everything. But I mean, it's a pretty cool moment to know. It's very rare that you win anywhere and he wasn't around when it comes to sports. And Jacob says best fish sandwiches in Eastern Kentucky. I'll definitely have to agree with that. Donnie was a good guy, Melina says. Mark said he's got the world famous fish sandwich. Fish sandwich is getting a lot of talk in it, but he did. He had a good one. And do you remember when he coached Freezer Fresh Little League with Elam? With the Elam, was it Rex? How you say that?
Elam Rexall Drug. I
Rex.
played for Elam Rexall Drug.
That's the team you was on back in the
Yeah.
what? Not that you was on the original Sandlot team, wasn't you? But
I remember Donnie helping. I remember Donnie as an assistant coach for the Freezer Fresh. I think he was assistant. He may have been the head coach, but like I said, I was a young player just playing baseball, and that's when I first got to meet a lot of people up in what I called the big city of West Liberty. I was raised down on Route 7, down around Wrigley, so we didn't get to come to town very much. And then when we started playing youth sports, we played Little League baseball, Little League football, and then we had Little League basketball. A lot of the same kids played, so we got to know each other. And then I moved. Me and my family moved to the West Liberty area, and I attended middle school here at West Morgan County Middle. And like I said, got to know those kids a lot better. And Donnie was always visible in the Little League football program. I mean, he was right there painting the lines on the field,
oh
just
yeah,
like baseball, painting the
yeah,
lines.
he was always involved.
We talk about him, helping kids. You just imagine the amount of hours that the legend, put in just volunteering to get the field prepared, get the concession stand ready to go, clean up afterwards, trophies. People have no idea.
The trophies that he would get
Yeah,
in there.
yeah, people have no idea the amount of time sacrifice from your own family that entails. So that in itself means somebody that will, one, care more about your kids than, I'm not saying he doesn't care about his kids, but I'm saying sacrificing time
Right.
with his kids. That says a lot about a servant.
I'll say
a
something.
servant's heart.
A lot of people probably never knew about Donnie. I didn't know it either until just a few years, and I got to think about it. You never saw Donnie drive a car. I don't think the man ever drove a car that I ever known. Someone always took him everywhere, and I thought, to be that involved, he was everywhere. He was everywhere. Um, like right here, you got John just saying one of the best man ever. Bo loved playing for H&W, and Bo, was one of Donnie's former players that played with H&W. And I've had the honor of playing with Bo myself, up in the Louisa area, from in that area. And, Donnie would be at those games. I mean, it don't matter where he was at.
Well, you talk about the impact that Donnie made just here in the Morgan County community. Imagine the number of people that Donnie has come in contact with in
Well, we'll
having
probably
his
figure
own
we're
team.
going to find that out tomorrow night.
Oh yeah.
So,
Well, I imagine I would say close to probably 5,000 to 10,000 people will probably go through
it's going to be
view.
massive. I was telling people today, probably a good idea to park at IGA.
Yeah.
Because, I know high school graduation and stuff like that is usually big with crowds, but I would imagine this visitation, I think it's tomorrow night at the high school gym, 6 to 9. They're going to have to extend that time because you're not going to get that many people through there in 3 hours. I mean, there's just not. And Bobby says here, the best way that we can honor Donnie and Daryl is to make sure someone is taking care of those fields and programs and paying it forward for the kids to come. I'm not sure if Daryl ever waited for permission to do what needed to be done. He just did it, and that goes a long way too. The football fields and Herdman Field, to be exact. That's where most of Donnie's memory is. That's most. He still has the name on the new football field, but Herdman Field was mostly where all the big time Donnie moments come from, and Daryl Bradley's, and a lot of those guys that have passed on. Yeah, it's just not. And if anybody watching has any Donnie memories you want to share with us, or you want to talk about it tonight, I mean, feel free to do so. Because we know, like Matthew said, a lot of people's hurting. I mean, there's a lot of people that may not even knew Donnie all too well. They just knew him when they saw him, and they're like, he's a wonderful, wonderful person. And he'll be missed. Donnie will be missed, and that's going to be a big empty spot in Morgan County that we'll never have another like. I'm glad to see you again. I'm just glad you made it back. Should I tell on you or should I not tell on you?
Don't tell
Waddy came in here in his hand tonight, and I'm thinking, well, I know where you're going to end up this weekend. So it's like, not again. But anyway, I mean, we was here last Friday, so it's been almost a week, since we've been here, and as we always say, a lot of things happen. I'm kind of ashamed to say, but I didn't get to throw my notes together till about an hour ago, so I haven't, been a little busy the last week or so I haven't got to do a whole lot with it. But a lot have happened. I mean, we see what you've got over here. It don't matter wherever you want to take off at. Let's see here.
Matthew's quiet. Oh my.
Well, that's because we're still in the memorandum right now. We're coming down. We're actually waiting to see how long it'll be before a certain message pops up. Right. Yes, Jonda, that's what me and Dad talked about today. Is we're hoping that there'll be a memorial softball tournament. I'm going to mention it to some of the guys that's over the softball leagues and stuff down here right now, and I'm hoping that's okay. Well, we've got our first topic of the night. Bobby Manyoma says it's okay. Talk about the fake space trip. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the
all-female crew.
The all-female crew.
11 minutes in space.
So we cannot say that anybody was discriminated against.
All-female crew.
It was an all-female crew. They spent all 11 minutes
on a spaceship that looked like a huge, large dildo.
And all of a sudden we went. Let's just take a look at it. Here's the SpaceX capsule that's scorched after its atmospheric re-entry. It looks like something just like a marshmallow that's been burnt. But here's the Blue Origins capsule after atmospheric re-entry, and it's clean as a whistle. So, I mean, I guess they didn't really go to space then, did they? Where did they go to? Behind the clouds? I mean, where could they have possibly go to?
Every spaceship that we've ever seen on television or in space that makes its way back into the Earth's atmosphere sustains enormous amount of heat, and every one of them have sustained, burning, like black marks on the front. You look at this one;
Ain't got
it
nothing.
went into outer space, re-entered the Earth's atmosphere, and excessive heat, and it looks like it did the moment it took off.
I don't know how you could put somebody
in
that.
Anybody on that capsule that was trained to be in space? Because I know Katy Perry was mentioned. I mean, I'm not sure that she has much.
Was Matthew Perry happen to be on that?
No.
Is that your cousin?
Is that your family members?
No, that is not my family member. And Gail something was on there. Is her name Gail King?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like talk show host.
Yeah. Okay. So was there like?
It was an all-female crew, pretty much, that went, and then the question is, okay, you talk about a pressurized outer space capsule. When they re-enter space, before you can open the door, the question is, can you open the door from the inside of the capsule? And the answer to that is yes, only after it has been exposed to the elements and allowed to depressurize. So, what I'm going to look at you and tell you is this capsule went in outer space for 11 minutes, set back down on the Earth, and what happens? They open the door from the inside instantaneously. They all get out. They all play it up. They're all kissing the ground.
They're all kissing the ground, taking
And
their little
I'm
posing
like-
pictures
I'm like,
here, as you see.
There's a lot of question marks that surround this. You know, it leads you to believe that it's a figment of your imagination. Is it a distraction? What are they trying to distract you from?
That's what I'd like to know.
There's things that happened this week that they tried to distract you from.
We knew you would enlighten us.
Huh?
Well, I mean, at the same time, I mean, you look at that picture and you're like, I mean, what did they do? Fly about 30,000 feet, above where the planes are and just come right back down? Because I've never seen anything come back that's, supposedly, flies outside of our atmosphere that comes back that ain't scorched. Now, this is where we need Jim Foster. This is where we need Jim on here. We may have to bring Jim on here next week and let him talk.
Okay. One thing that's in the news that they're distracting you from is Donald Trump has announced that he is willing to put American detainees, American prisoners in a prison in El Salvador. They don't want you to know that some Americans are getting ready to go to El Salvador. Who would that be?
Look here, we got Jeff Bezos, and the lady actually went to the door to tell them to shut it back. When they started opening it, he went, there's a video, I don't have it, but
because they're, hold up.
But he went and told them to shut the door back.
Okay.
Right.
So what that tells you is, and I even said it, I answered my own question. Can a pressurized spaceship that exits the Earth's atmosphere, re-enters untouched, sit down, can they open the door from inside? Yes, they can, but they have to depressurize. So there's no way within a matter of seconds of touching down that they can depressurize and become exposed to the elements of their environment and it become neutralized. Did not happen. So that leads you to believe. You look at the spaceship itself, Mike. You said it re-entered the Earth's atmosphere at excessive heat. It's unscorched, untouched. It's just like it took off. It's just like it was the moments before it took off. No way. There's a lot of question marks around it. So what
Bobby
it leads you
says
to believe,
Hollywood. I'm actually starting to think Bobby is more.
Trump brought me. Well, he was on her post.
I think Bobby is. How do I say this? More on the conspiracy side with us than what her eldest sister is. That sits back here. I'm actually looking forward to Easter dinner at this point. So me and Bobby can have these conversations about the space capsule. But then again, maybe Bobby and Deborah are wanting to take a trip up now, since the women can do it. So you mad? I see.
I think I read something.
11 minutes.
That cost like $1 million to go on this ship to go
Who
up.
paid for that? Taxpayers.
Well, Jeff Bezos was all over it. So
they call them. Okay,
guys. I'm just trying to get one or two here. I know you don't want me to have them all.
But what I am going to look at you tell you, though, Mike, is it leads you to believe that the elements don't add up. If they don't add up, then you know what that means, don't you? Space travel is fake.
And
did the moon landing occur on July the 20th, 1969? Was Neil Armstrong the first man to actually step foot on the moon and say, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind? This ought to give you a pretty good indication that a lot of the things we see very well could be elements of Hollywood involved. And, it's easier to fool people than convince them that they've been fooled.
Bobby said, I wouldn't even be kissing the ground if I was stuck up there for 9 months.
Well, hold up.
Which I forgot about those people, too.
Yeah. They were up there for 9 months. Two people on the International Space Center called in outer space. The lady had gray hair running through her head. And then when she touches back down to Earth, during that 9-month period, she found
Way to dye her hair.
I'm
hair
going.
coloring.
I'm so going.
I'm sorry. I'm telling you, she didn't take that hair
We
coloring.
need to send
high.
No,
Deborah.
I think when you go to space, your hair color comes back. I'm going.
I
So bring
agree.
part
It's gonna
up.
save me a
I've
lot
never
of
been
money.
there, so I don't know.
It's gonna save me a lot, especially if you can do it.
Okay,
in
I'm gonna
11
give you
minutes.
another one. Okay, they were only going into space originally for a certain amount of time. I want to say it was like 7 to 10 days, but yet they end up being up there.
Well, for about a year, wasn't it?
Okay, an extended period of time.
Well, 9
Okay.
months, I guess what it was.
Okay,
Yeah.
do you think they're going to take Christmas hats with them during the middle of March or April when they first went up there?
Well, so they obviously knew something was happening, didn't they?
So, and then all of a sudden they got to celebrate Christmas up there and they've all got hats on. So it just leads you to believe that there's some unanswered questions about the involvement of the media in all of this space exploration. All right. We've got SpaceX and we've got NASA. All right. And we hear a lot about the planet Mars, that we're going to form
we're going to have a colony up
colony
there.
on Mars.
Within the next, 10 years, we're going to actually be sending people there to live on it. Larry said he stepped on the moon. Who took the video?
That's a good question. And what I'm going to tell you is the Ren 10 space capsule that they went into outer space, it was beat up, banged up. It would have never made re-entry. There's no sustainable way. So it leads me to believe that, like I said, I'm not saying that it did or it didn't happen. I'm just looking at you saying that it's okay to question it because.
Well, me and you could get on a hot air balloon and fly up as high as we could go and say we went to outer space and then come back down.
You might go into the beginnings of outer space,
that's
but
what
I'm talking about into the deep elements of outer
space. I would not be kissing the ground though. I would be like, that's it. I mean, it was 11 minutes. It's like up there and back. That would have been very disappointing for me. Like I've been like, it's kind of like something that's built up for like a year, like a movie or something, and you watch it and you're like, oh.
Well, like you're saying here,
and
it'd be like getting on your roller coaster that you've been waiting to ride, and you're getting there, and it's just like boom, and it's over, and you're like, really? That's all it was? Yeah. 11 minutes? It takes that long to.
And you're like, I waited a year.
It takes us 11 minutes to drive from the house to the Index, so it's like, well, that ain't long.
But the question is this: how much money does the space program, NASA, and the National Aeronautical and Space Administration, how much are they allocated by the government and budgeted to spend on all these things? And you have elements of what I would call Hollywood fraud that makes you believe that, hey, this is not possible.
I miss when we were younger, though. Do you not remember them sending more space shuttles up? Like they sent more up. Now you don't hardly hear.
Well, after the '86 Challenger explosion, the amount of money and the amount of funding supposedly decreased. However, if you go look at it, it pretty much about $55 million a day is their budget. Yeah, a lot of money.
A day?
Yeah, it's about 55.
Bobby said, "Fake." Listen to Katy Perry's repeating for taking a daisy. She described a dandelion, not a daisy. Bad acting. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, Hollywood could do anything. After last week, I don't know.
Half the movies in Hollywood are made without actually being on set. A lot of it is green screen. Right. Green screen.
Or
so could they use the elements of green screen to trick you? They do it in the weather every day. All they do is they put a green screen up there, and they show you a map of the United States, and they basically project the storms coming in, the wind, the wind patterns, and all that. I'm sitting there going,
have you seen these AI videos? Like these people talking, and you're like, wait a minute.
Got you, Bobby. I'm like, what am I reading here?
What the actual person talks, but it's pretty convincing, isn't it, Michael? Me and you talked about it. Because I was like, did they really say that? And then you go back and you do research.
Well, I mean, if you listen closely last week, it's about your new spokesman, that talked about, the history of me and you. I mean,
Mr. Brock.
No, not Mr. No, not that spokesman. That was been fired.
Oh, you're talking about the beginning of the show?
His mission is complete. That one's over. I'm talking about at the beginning of the show. The voice that talked about me and Matthew being cupcakes. Is that what it was?
No, he called us
what was
crackpots.
Crackpots. That's it. Crackpots. That's what it was. We were crackpots. I'm like, what am I thinking? Cupcake. I must be wanting a cupcake.
Sounds good.
But I mean, well, let's see. I don't know if I still got it on here or not. I was going to say if there's any new people on here that didn't get to hear it, I'll play it for you, and then you'll see. Me and Matthew don't know who this person is.
Was it AI generated?
Never met him before. Probably never will because it was made.
His mission's complete.
Well, I
You want him to show up to meet
ain't going to show
in
up
the
and meet
holler
it in there.
at dark.
Ain't going nowhere in the dark with anybody like that. Does it do any good for people on Earth not? Does it do any good for the people on Earth, not the ones on Mars?
What's the question?
Larry must be wanting to go to Mars, I guess.
Well, the creator, when you talk about NASA was created in 1957. Basic purpose was to begin the beginnings of space exploration and slowly but surely catch up with the Russian technology. What I'm going to look at you is they made a promise, Kennedy did, at the beginning of the 1960s, that by the end of the 60s, they would put a man on the moon. When you look at NASA, you look at one name, Wernher von Braun. He was the man that basically took the technology that we had at that time and supposedly allowed us to put rocket propelled projectiles into outer space. If you go and look at his tombstone, his tombstone has a biblical verse on it that talks specifically about the firmament.
Right.
Go look at Wernher von Braun's. I want to say it's Isaiah something is the name of the biblical verse from the Bible, but the verse itself talks about the firmament. The firmament is a dome-like structure that is believed and it's talked about in the Bible in the first chapter of Genesis, in the creation. God created the heavens and the earth, and He created a firmament to separate the waters. Water above and water below.
What was the name again?
Wernher von Braun. He was a German scientist that came over here after World War II as part of what is called Operation Paperclip. The United States brought over 1,600 Nazi scientists, chemists, physicists, and gave them leadership, huh?
We saw that with the tick stuff, right? The person on Plum Island was also a Nazi scientist.
So, Wernher von Braun took the revolutionary ideas that people had that we could go into outer space. And when you look at his tombstone, like I said, it's got a biblical
Daniel
verse.
Ferguson says October Sky. Have you watched
Homer
that?
Hickam. Homer Hickam was inspired by Wernher von Braun.
October Sky is a damn good movie.
He was from West Virginia.
That's a real good movie, man.
A poor community in West Virginia, and he experimented with rockets. He ended up working for NASA. But Wernher von Braun is the guy that basically took the ideas of people with NASA, the National Aeronautical and Space Administration. And the most famous words out of this is, Houston, we have a problem.
It does say that his gravestone cites Psalm 19:1, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament sheweth his handiwork.
So what are you trying to say? Go ahead and say it. I want to hear you say it.
You're right, Matthew.
You want to know what I'm going to say? Something that I'm not. I'm going to let somebody else.
Am I the only one that didn't know Jeverdon and Perry's wild journey? Let's dive in. Michael Jeverdon and Matthew Perry, two names, once synonymous with wild conspiracy theories. For years, they were dismissed as crackpots. But guess what? Their theories started gaining traction. From chemtrails to secret societies, these guys went from crazy to maybe onto something. Now they're known as conspiracy realists. Their ideas, once laughed at, are now being taken seriously.
And that's as far as we're going to go, because the last part of it talks about something we don't want to bring up and give anybody else any idea. But that is our good friend, artificial intelligence. Because all I typed in was said, take my name, Matthew's name, and tell a story about us. And that's what I got. Actually, there's a video. I won't lie.
Wow.
There's actually a video of it, but the video had a big watermark going through the center of it. So I'm like, I don't want to show that because it doesn't look too good.
AI concluded that you guys were crackpots.
And they called us crackpots. So I'm so glad that somewhere out in the universe there, in the AI universe, they know that we're a crackpot.
Now you imagine this. I taught history for.
And you're still a crackpot.
I taught history for right around 13 or 14 years. And one of the things I studied very investigatively was World War II. I think World War
That's
II.
my favorite time. World War II, Great Depression.
You're talking about a lot of events that transpired from the beginning of the war to the end of the war, and then with the ending of the war with the dropping of the 2 atomic bombs. But one of the things I had never heard of was, and I'd never kind of investigated, was Operation Paperclip. And when I heard about it, I thought, gosh, this is kind of weird that the United States government would bring over scientists from a country that they had just been at war with for one particular reason, and that was to gain an advantage and try to surpass the ideas of the USSR, the Soviet Union. We didn't want to fall behind technologically and as well as outer space. You talk about space exploration. 1957, NASA's created. Well, that same year, the Russians launched an artificial orbiting mini moon called Sputnik 1.
That was what was saw on October sky. They was there when Sputnik, made the flyover, the first flyover or whatever.
So, it wasn't long after that you get Sputnik 2 that carried a passenger, which was a dog called Lakia. And then it wasn't that long after that, Yuri Gagarin became the first Russian cosmonaut to venture beyond the Earth's atmosphere. However, Kennedy in the early 60s proclaimed the United States would be the first nation to put a man on the moon. And on July 20th, 1969, we will forever live in the shadows of the words, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Now, whether you believe that, I always told my classes that it's not for me to dive into disputing it, but there were a lot of older aged Americans. A lot of older aged Americans that thought that it was all staged, that it wasn't real.
Nora said she becomes more of a realist every day. She's almost there. She's almost got the realist badge. I mean, she's real close. And then Bobby said someone called you crackpots out there somewhere.
We are.
I don't know where that. I don't know.
That's better than being called a crackhead.
Yeah, I'll take it, I guess. No, I'm like you. I've always enjoyed the Great Depression, World War II era. Going in, up through there like that. That's
well, you talk about World War II. If you're teaching, you could teach an entire year on just the rise of the Nazi Party and all the events that took place from the end of World War I that led up to the Hitler becoming the Reich Chancellor in 1933-34. So, a lot of events. And then, you talk about expansion. But, I saw an interesting thing that happened on Hitler. I don't know if anybody saw this or not, but the Argentinian president released secret documents that stated that after World War II, Adolf Hitler did not die in Germany, that he escaped under the city of Berlin through secret tunnels, made his way to the coast where he was put on multiple submarines and taken to Argentina, where he lived until he died 2 decades after World War II, and fathered 2 daughters. This is something that came out weeks ago, but a lot of people, the media is not.
The media is not going to tell you that, because then they'd have to rewrite a history book.
And we do know that the Russians supposedly found the body of Adolf Hitler in Berlin beneath his bunker. Supposedly he had committed homicide. He shot his new bride, Eva Braun, and then they reportedly took suicide, and he committed suicide, shot himself in the head. They found the body of Hitler, but what they found is, now that they've done DNA analysis, Russian scientists convey now that body was not actually a man, that it was a female, the one that they thought was Hitler's. And they've had that all these years.
All these years.
So I'm not saying Hitler made it out of World War II. I'm just telling you, I find it very odd that the Argentinian president would come out and release secret documents stating that he believed he lived and that he lived in Argentina up until his death and actually reared 2 children in the process, 2 daughters.
I would say there's a lot more of them too. Since we're on the topic of being realist.
Well, you don't want to tarnish.
I would
what
say
our
there's
American
a lot more
soldiers
people
did in
that
World War II
know
because
that
they had to endure a lot. Normandy, most people have watched the movie Saving
that
Private
was
Ryan.
when we were talking about that the other day. That was a disaster. That's like me and you just coming across the lake and people standing up there with guns, and me and you just pop up on the beach and they start shooting.
But what that
Yeah,
tells you is
it's
that shows you how fortified the Nazis were in their attempts to maintain control over Europe. That they built concrete bunkers overlooking the sea, and they basically controlled the airways.
We lost a lot of people.
They controlled the airways over Europe, so the only way you were going to attack them was by sea.
And they were waiting too.
They were waiting, yeah.
That was a bloodshed that day.
I
mean, I think we still got through though, but
maybe it's 5 beaches along Normandy. I want to say it's 5 beaches: Star, Sword, Omaha.
Just like a little boat's coming in there, and you're sitting duck because they're up on the hill shooting right into you.
Yeah,
I mean, that was.
But within hours, we were able to secure a foothold.
We just kept coming,
and then we began the long march through Europe, destination Berlin. So.
Today at Florida State University, there was 2 people killed, 6 others were injured in a shooting. Police identified the suspect shooter as 20-year-old Phoenix Eichner, a student at the school. Eichner was taken to the area hospital after being neutralized by authorities. Police said his mother is a deputy sheriff in Leon County Sheriff's Office, and he used her weapon, for the killing. After this, during a press briefing, a reporter asked Donald Trump if he was going to strip away people's Second Amendment rights due to this shooting. Donald Trump's reply was, "The gun doesn't do the shooting. People do. I have an obligation to protect the Second Amendment, and I will always protect the Second Amendment." Now, see, the previous guy would have been up there, "I'm coming after your guns. Your guns are killing everybody." And it's like, dude, your guns ain't doing nothing.
We've got to get out of a mentality as a society of punishing everyone because somebody does something. What about someone who texts and drives? You going to take away cell phones? I mean, this whole idea that
if you go back, let me say this. I'm not trying to interrupt you. I am. I actually was.
No, you are.
But if you go back and you look at all of these school shootings that have taken place, every one of them have a single common denominator. I will guarantee you that every one of those shooters, if you look at it close and do your research, every one of them were on some type of medication for mental health issue.
Probably could find
every single one of them.
Man.
And the issue is not guns. The issue is, are we giving people the help that we need? Are we being able to identify them? And are we able to seek out services that could possibly or potentially help these people? But you go back and do your research. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I will pretty well guarantee you that just about every one of them had a commonality.
I would agree.
They're on an antidepressant. What we got? What is it, like Prozac? Something to try to alleviate depression issues.
Yeah, I've got a picture of the shooter here. There he is. And there was another picture, I believe, tied to this.
And it's very tragic. Like I said, you don't want it to happen anywhere, but it seems like these people that undertake these vicious acts single out school settings. Why school settings?
Those are soft zones. I mean, you're not going to go shoot up a police department or a prison because they have guns there. You know what I'm saying? Someone's not going to go into a police station and shoot up a police station because there's going to be guns there. You're going to be taken out before you ever have an opportunity. But you can go into a soft zone because the likelihood is there's no guns there. You're going to be able to
Yes,
pull your
Melina,
act
she'll be
off.
here. What time? Who knows? But she will be here. Probably not before noon.
I won't be here before noon.
Okay, 11:55.
You know, I remember
But
the
you can work
first
it out with
first
them,
school shooting that I can remember.
The one I remember was the one here in Kentucky.
Was the one in Grayson. That's the one I mentioned
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
remember because I guess it was so close to home.
It was the Pennington boy.
Yeah, there was a student that took.
I've heard about it, but that was
basically
sorry to say, but that was before my time.
Took the class captive, ended up shooting a teacher and a custodian. I think in the end, maybe turned himself over to the proper authorities and was convicted of both crimes. Ended up serving time at Eastern Kentucky Correctional Complex. I think it was at Little Sandy Correctional Complex.
Or was he in both those places?
Yeah. So that's the one I remember, and how unfortunate.
What was the one?
Someone would enter a school.
The Paducah shooting, Michael Carneal.
There was one at Heath High School.
Heath High School. Now that's
I
remember that one because I was still in school. Younger school, like elementary.
There was one
age.
at Marshall County, if I'm not mistaken, a shooting at Marshall County High School, and there's been several. Nationwide. It seems like it's a commonality. It's something that I would wish would just altogether just cease to exist, and a lot of times we don't recognize that every person has their issues. Somebody's going through something.
Yeah.
And you just don't realize what it is.
There's a mental illness tied to a lot of these shooters because I own weapons. I own guns. I do.
Sandy Hook is another one.
Got a whole cabinet full of guns. And I've got one of those fearless ones, those ones that nobody's supposed to have. One of those real mean ones that nobody's supposed to have. But never do I ever think about getting up every morning and getting one and just going and walking into a place where nobody can defend themselves and just open it up. You don't. Now, if you have a mental illness, maybe you do. Maybe that's just what you want to do.
It's called rational thought.
But
someone that thinks rationally probably understands the consequences of their actions. If you think irrationally, you're out of mind, you're out of sight, out of mind, and you don't really care what happens to you or anybody else. You're hurting and you need help, and sometimes I guess you act out, but you don't want to see anybody innocent and any innocent lives be taken.
Here's his actual profile. You are my war club, my weapon for battle. With you I shatter nations. With you I destroy kingdoms, which was Jeremiah 51:20. I don't know. It just seeing that tied to him now kind of puts a new perspective on that, because it's like, you put the Bible verse up there or whatever, and then I'm over here on the wrong thing. And we went to school with a gun in the vehicle and go hunting after school. Absolutely.
But times have changed now. Times have changed.
I could put you on high alert here, for now. There was one time, you were still teaching and I was still in high school. I got out of the car that morning, looked, and I had a 12-gauge shotgun laying in the back seat of my car because I went squirrel hunting the evening before, and I'm like, I'm gone. I'm done. But no issues. All the boys carried pocket knives. All the boys at school had pocket knives in their pockets. Heck, sometimes the teachers would even look at them and trade them with you and stuff. That's what I'm getting at. It's very rare that you ever had a moment where, like Chad's talking about, or I had tobacco knives. I'd be helping people cut tobacco, and I've had those big tobacco knives and spears laying in the back floorboard, and it's like, never thought anything about it. The gun one I did, and I'm thinking I'm screwed here. But, things wasn't like they are now. You get caught with a gun in your vehicle in the parking lot now, you're probably going home for the year, maybe never come back. Even if you didn't have no intentions of doing anything at all, it's just an accident. But
think about how times have changed now. One of the main uh, things schools do to try to ensure safety is they have their teachers go through a program called active shooters. What to do if a perpetrator enters your building with a gun and is going to
Do you guys
undertake.
have to do that drill with the students?
No, well, the
We do
teachers
that.
do it, but we practiced. We always practiced our safe school management uh, program at the beginning of the year, and we would evacuate the building. And here's the thing, they teach you now certain things like run, fight, hide.
Right.
It's if you're
Well,
within the
I think fight's the last thing they
It-
wanted you to do.
yeah, if
You know,
you're
you can run if you can, hide if you can, but if all else fails and you have to fight, then you've got
then
to
barricade yourself in a room.
pick up something other, and try to defend yourself.
And
Do whatever.
you notice something. A lot of these schools are adopting like door latches that will not allow someone to penetrate through the door.
Well, I know at our
bulletproof
schools,
windows.
at our schools, I mean, I'm sure it is probably everywhere by now, but our schools, you have to have the doors locked. All
Yeah,
your
that's
classroom
another
doors
thing,
have
yeah.
to be closed. The doors have to be locked while students are in class. And then, like you said, and also I know here at our high school, they've got the stuff up where you can't see into the classroom. You can't.
By law, all windows must
all
be
windows
covered.
have to be covered. So yeah.
And then too, you take one of the things we do in schools is we'll do certain type of drills, fire drill, tornado drill,
You have to.
earthquake, but you'll do, as I said.
Well, with our Head Start kids, we did a drill too, and told them that if we say, I don't remember what it is because I was fairly new, but that we teach them to get under the tables underneath the
And be as quiet as possible.
and be quiet. Yep.
We just went through that drill on Monday.
Yeah.
But was it Monday? No.
It's called a
That was
lockdown.
last
It's
week.
basically a
That was
lockdown
That was
drill.
last week at Morgan Central.
You're
when we did
practicing a
that.
lockdown drill, and there are different levels of a lockdown drill. The severity determines the lockdown. Soft lockdown, you're basically just going to lock your
Just
door.
make sure the doors are
continue
locked.
teaching. A hard lockdown means there's a perpetrator in the building. You probably need to get in a corner, barricade the door, get something in your hands. If
Don't
they
be
come,
giving out the code word.
if there's something that if they do come through the door, you're prepared to do whatever you can to defend yourself.
And we hope
stay
that day
alive.
never comes.
No, we don't
because
wish that on
because there's
nobody.
a lot of new what's the word I'm looking for, on the outside of the building.
Well,
you can't get into the building now. Used to, you can walk up to your school building, just open the door.
you've got
Now
buzzer systems. You've got
now you got to push the button, show your ID, and then they have to
which is good.
which
good.
I love.
And then let me give you something else they've done. Okay, I went to school in the '90s. I was young, whereas Deborah went in the '80s. So we didn't we didn't have.
Yeah, come in here, man.
Okay, no, I graduated in '90, but
Well,
I don't remember.
She was in the '70s then.
I don't remember ever having, and you may correct me if I'm wrong, police presence in the building unless a fire.
No, we had the old-fashioned thing called our parents present was there without them being on site because we didn't have cell phones. But yet, if we did something at school, our parents knew.
Well, you also had something else that was hanging on the principal's wall. That big piece of wood.
Oh, you're talking about
that big piece of wood with holes and stuff in it, or some of them didn't have the holes. But I mean, if that thing went across your butt cheeks, you knew it pretty quickly.
But think about it. Now there is there is police presence in every school in the United States.
4 years of high
school
school
resource
I can
officers.
tell you one time I saw a police officer at school.
The only time I remember seeing a police officer there is usually they would come on prom just to walk around, ball games, stuff like that. Now there's a police presence in that building to ensure that you have someone that is licensed to carry a gun to help defend kids.
That's the only person that's going to be in the school with a weapon.
Yeah.
And, in a situation where someone does get through the front door, that officer is the first to respond. That officer is going to be running toward that situation and should deter, hopefully enough time for
But
You
it's
know,
sad.
the lockdown that
But
you were talking about, the
you
hard
think that
lockdown.
you think about where we were and where we are now. Where have we've
It's
come?
sad.
Well, yeah, I mean,
It's
I
sad.
heard people used to trade. I hear some of the older folk, you know, a little older than you guys, you know, a little bit older, but you know, they talk about how they traded pocket knives with the teachers at school, or how the teachers would have guns in their cars and they'd swap out guns in the parking lots.
Wait, I thought you said you traded with teachers.
I'm talking about pocket knives. If they'd have found out I would have had the weapon and the other,
No, I'm talking about pocket knives too.
oh yeah, now pocket knives, absolutely. I won't lie. I've had a pocket knife probably since I was old enough to carry a pocket knife.
But that's just something.
But I never did. I ever get a pocket knife out there in ball practice, start cutting basketballs up and stuff. That's what I'm saying. I mean, you know, it never did affect anything. It was just a part of, just like putting your shoes on to me. And it still is to this day. You know, I carry a pocket knife to this day.
Well, and there's a lot of kids that still do. I mean, they don't carry them because they're going to use it as a dangerous weapon. They just carry it because, I say this, because it's part of their culture and the region in which they live. It's called sexualism.
Nora's got a really good point there. She said, my parents had the buff on me because if I got in trouble at school, I got in trouble when I got home. And that's what I was talking about the other day at school. I said, yeah, back in the day, you got that paddling at school. And then when your parents or guardians showed up to pick you up, you got another whipping.
I promise you that
Larry could talk about a story about the whippings that he got.
The spanking at school was nothing compared to what you get at home.
Well, the most important attribute.
No, that's because that's a willow switch across the leg.
The most important attribute that our parents can give us is discipline. Discipline goes a long way in everything you do. And I hear people say, "Well, you can be too hard on kids," and that parents have changed. That
well, then the parents don't need to have kids.
You know, between me and you, I don't think kids have changed. I think our expectations.
I think we have changed. Our expectations have changed, and I think we've gotten in this thing of we don't want kids to understand what making mistakes and failures are. Life is hard. It's not easy, and so when we set our kids up to think that everything's peach, a big peach, and that nobody's feelings are hurt and everybody's equal.
Larry says, "What about a referee's pew pew going down the floor?"
Oh, I know who that was.
Who would that be?
That would have been your papa.
That's my papa. He had a big .45 pistol that he would wear and he'd keep in his pocket, and he was the referee up at Candle City.
Matthew,
and he'd be running down the floor and he'd fall out and go rolling down the floor. Now you tell me that ain't, if that happened this day and age, he'd be locked away for life if a gun flew out of a referee's pocket during a ball game. I think
the expectations have changed. We've coddled them. And I think every parent wants their kid to have an easier life than what they had. I just think that's just the natural of being a good parent. But we've also sheltered them, and we've tried to make it seem like everything's okay when sometimes they have to make mistakes to learn. I had to make mistakes to learn. I've made plenty in my years.
Yeah, but okay, well, you know, and I say this, and correct me if I'm wrong, we've created a society where now kids, if we try to discipline kids just threaten their parents with, "I'll turn you into social services." Social services gets involved, and they want to come in and do an internal investigation to determine whether or not you're treating your child properly. Well, you know, what they find a lot of times is the kid needs discipline. The kid needs discipline, and the parents trying to do right by it. Now, I'm not saying that some parents don't take it overboard. They may do it, but here's what I...
Well, there's a way to whip your kid and then beat your kid. You know, that's two different things. You know, Bobby said our generation would fight. These kids don't fight. They kill or bully into suicide.
Or they are digital warriors. They get behind a computer board, keyboard,
and do all these threats.
The phone. And what it's done is it's created cyberbullying. You're basically, you know, just bullying a kid, but you're doing it rather than verbally. You're doing it by means of a computer, and you're belittling people. And, you know, it's sad. You know, I try to tell the people I come in contact with, and I teach school still this day. If you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all.
Nora said, "I seen my mom and dad in action, and I knew I didn't want any of that."
I think we got to a point, too, where, like, for example, I know when we were playing a sport, people didn't want to keep score. And the reasoning being was they said we were playing for fun. I'm going to tell you this. I think competition's healthy. I think it helps us strive to do better. You have to learn how to lose in life as well as win. You ain't a winner all the time. None of us are.
That's called adversity.
Right.
Yeah, what you're talking about is like kids these days getting trophies
For
and
23rd place.
and don't have to do anything.
Like we were playing a game with 6, 7, 8-year-olds. Y'all, they can count. And I had one of the super smart kids on my team, and he come over to me and he said, "Hey, we're winning, aren't we?" And I started to say something, and the person running it behind me goes, "We don't keep score." I said, "We don't keep score." He said, "Yeah, but we're winning, ain't we?" And I said,
So I'm saying,
"We don't keep score."
and then at the end of the year, they're all going to get these big participation trophies, and you don't even keep score. So you don't know if you won or not. I mean, you're just out there kicking a ball.
No. So at the end of the game, they were giving high fives or whatever with the other.
Yeah, but let me say this. I think competition is good for kids. I think it encourages kids to know that, hey, I may not be as good as this kid, but if I work hard and I put in the time and the effort,
then
I
deserve
can
it,
get
right.
there, and I've earned it.
That's right.
And I have something that you can't take away from me. It's called pride.
That's right.
But what ends up happening a lot of times in youth sports is people end up leaving with a bad taste in their mouth because let's say I have a team that's extremely talented and I'm playing a team led by Mike that's not, I could be a bad guy and just run the score up and
beat
destroy
us 100-20 or something.
and that happens still to this day.
I've been there with soccer.
I mean, I've been there too. I've been on the end of it. I live by philosophy.
You remember that time we left at halftime?
At Russell one year.
You told Leonard Benton to start the bus and let's get out of here.
Hey, listen, here's what I live by this philosophy. Everybody that you meet on the way up the ladder, you're sure as well going to meet them again on the way down. So if you're meeting them on the way up, you're better off to if you're going to beat them graciously. Don't try to rub it in their face. And, I'm not saying not win by 20 points, not win by 25. What I'm saying is don't beat somebody 50 to 70 points and beat the life out of them.
You're up 50. You're up 55 to 7 at halftime or something.
Okay. But let me say this. Sometimes,
turn the game
okay, but
Honey,
sometimes you can't help it. And the reason I say
Matthew's
that,
been in real life situations
I've been
like that.
I've been on the positive side of it. I've been on the negative side of it. But let me say this: if you're on the positive side of it, you're doing everything as you can as a coach to try to stop
That's
it,
right.
prevent it. Okay, you're changing. Okay, like say I'm a primarily man-to-man defensive coach. I'm going down, setting in a zone. I'm bringing my kids down, and we're up 30 on you, and I'm telling them pass it 12 times, knowing that in the next game I'm hurting myself for preparation. So what I learned is, okay, I tried to be gracious to people in the first 10 to 12 years that I coached when we were highly, highly successful here at Morgan County and we were beating people. We could have beat people to death. You know I'm right, Mike. Yeah. But we kept it within 15, 16 points, right. Tried to keep it reasonable. And when I went through the line, I'd look at those kids and say, I know you didn't win today. Keep your head up. Keep working. But keep working hard. You'll get there. Don't because – we've been there. We know what that's about.
That's what I would say.
But what happens is, you beat those people for years, and then they get a chance to turn it on you. You would think that they would remember
how to turn around and lay it on you.
They lay it on you. So
exactly.
It's
like
the
you
best
remember
of
that time
worlds.
you all beat us by 50, and the night they beat us by 67. It's like, yeah, we getting you back.
That's the way it was in soccer. We were the most courteous team. Like we would try to be. We would try to be respectful of other people's feelings. But I'll tell you this week.
It's called sportsmanship.
Well, I mean,
it's called.
Yeah, and I wanted my team to have good sportsmanship because there will come a time when, we were losing. Like I remember, I pulled up to Round County and they had like a leg of 7th and 8th graders, and I had elementary kids pulling up to play.
And so that's going to be a disaster.
They wanted to get. I knew we was going to lose. We already knew we was going to lose. But my kids wanted to get back in the car, and I said, "Listen, you're going to go play. You're going to go have fun." I said, "Here's the deal. You're not supposed to win. Go out and play. If you score on them, that's just an extra benefit." I said, "Playing people who's better than you will make you better."
Well, at least I know your sister is going to be a good coach. If she's putting her bench in and they're beating someone by 59, she's going to keep playing.
Well, your bench have experience, so that's a good time for that, Matthew.
Yeah, I understand.
But see, what we were talking about a minute ago, though, was like the participation trophies and stuff. Through my sophomore year, I think my junior year, it kind of went away a little bit. But I know through freshman and sophomore year, Well, for one, we had this butthole as a coach, but he still was around, eating things he shouldn't later on down the road. But we had to try out. I remember freshman and sophomore year, we had tryouts. And after a couple of practices or whatever it was, we all went in and met with the coach one at a time. And if you made the team, you made the team. If you didn't, try again next time. Nowadays you can have 73 kids show up for basketball and you got 5 teams over here. And it's like,
My
what in the
problem
world?
with it today, and Matthew, I don't know, Michael, if they gave it out if they had quit doing that whenever he was. But at one point in time, there were trophies for most improved player, best free throw shooter, MVP. I mean, if you were the best player and you had the best.
If I'm not mistaken, I got the free throw 2 years in a row, junior and senior
So
year.
now they just want to give participation trophies, which doesn't reward
Yeah,
anyone
here you go.
who does extra work.
You scored
and works
5
hard.
points. You scored 5
Well-
points all season. Here you go.
Or
Yeah.
someone didn't show up to 5 practices.
Well, you feel like, and I must be honest with you, as a coach, what ends up happening is you know that when you give out those awards, even though they're earned, you're probably going to alienate somebody and somebody's going to get mad. And the thing is, they got to get over that because here's the thing, in life, you're only going to get what you put out of it or what you put into it. So what I'm going to look at to tell you, the harder you work, the more advantages and opportunities that you're going to create for yourself. No, that doesn't mean you're going to be fabulously wealthy. It doesn't mean that you're going to have a mansion on the hill unless you work in the government and
Still
you
don't.
make $174,000 and yet you're worth $100 million now. There's ways around that. But what I'm going to look at you and tell you is it sets you up for an easier life because you realize that hard work is valued. And there are people in this world that still value hard work. We've got away from that as a society, and it's weakened us as a nation. And that in itself has
I'll just
allowed
tell you,
countries
it makes
to
people
surpass us.
soft. Is exactly what it does.
Well,
Nora's telling a horror story on you here. I thought when I first read it, I thought she was going to say something else. Said I went to a home basketball game one night and was sitting 2 rows behind where the boys were sitting, and Matthew slapped one of them chairs during a timeout, and I jumped out of the bleach. When I first said Matthew slapped, I'm like, oh Lord, here comes one of them Bob Knight. See, he's gonna grab that chair and throw it across that. That would have been during his first few years when he was throwing the chairs across the river. But those days are probably gone, I'd imagine, at this time.
well, I mean, that's just part of being competitive. Some people look at that as being mean. No, you're being competitive. You expect a lot out of your kids. You want your kids to live up to the expectation that you have for them. And there's nothing wrong with being demanding as long as you continue to care for those kids. And those kids knew that, I would go to the end of the earth to try to help them in any way, any form, any fashion. You can call me. I have players still to this day that call and say, Coach, I need help. And what do, Mike? I extend the lending
You're all
hand.
over the
I'm
place.
trying to help those guys.
I've seen you just this past season alone. You've got your team over in Owensville, but on a Friday night or a Saturday, you may be up in Pikeville or in Floyd County or, somewhere up that way, working with other kids or, even have kids down in here working with them. I mean, that's just because you're a wonderful individual. But all those years I thought you wasn't. But but now Bobby's got a good point here too, though. She said there's like the word no exists, and you'll hear it plenty. You need to be able to teach these kids that you can be told no. But we hear so much in their society now not to teach kids no. Don't tell the kids no when it's like you might as well, because once you get out of school, you're going to hear it a lot in life.
But discipline, it goes back to what I said. Discipline in every form, every facet of your life will help you to become more successful. But yet, we've got away from that. We don't want people to be disciplined. And as a result of that, we've got a society that's dysfunctional at times.
It's kind of weird. We're talking about, threats and school stuff. And then right here, it just popped up 20-some minutes ago. It says, do you agree that teachers should have body cams? No, I mean, like a body cam, like the cops wear, because you do see a lot of videos and stuff. And I guess some of your inner city schools and stuff where the teachers are being attacked and, all this other stuff. I guess, in that scenario, it probably would be, maybe more likely that would be needed. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about body cams for
Well,
teachers.
most classrooms now, something that's evolved is most classrooms have cameras in them.
Well, yeah, usually
And
multiple.
they have the ability to have audio if necessary. I don't think it's the school systems are using them to spy on their employees and make sure they're doing their
Well, I know
job.
one of the cameras that they have in the school system is a round one that sets in the center, and it's got a whole 360 view of the room. Like they could click, what
Yeah.
part of the room they'd
But
want to go
they're
to.
there in case something bad
Right.
happens. Let's say a fight between two individuals breaks out. Somebody gets seriously hurt, and you don't have an account of what took place. That camera allows you to what? View that.
And I think that one actually has the audio too.
Yeah, get to the bottom of it. It's instances like that. But yet I think sometimes staff members view those cameras as a threat that, hey, somebody over in central office is sitting on that camera. They have more important things to do. And here's what I'm going to tell you. If you're doing your job and you're teaching and guiding and instructing kids, why would you worry anyway?
Usually a good one here. We all remember that lady from the airplane. So that was a good one.
That capsule looks like I hate to say this. Every time I look at it, it makes me think it's an inflatable. Does it not give you that idea?
I mean, I don't even look real. I mean, it looks like some kind of pop-up tent you would have at a campsite.
That's what I thought.
Maybe
an inflatable type
and maybe not even like a tent, like some kind of big. Let me pull that back up here real fast. I know it's a different picture, but like what you're talking about, like right here, it looks like it's got air in it. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like it's been inflated, like a big old.
What they call it, jump.
Yeah, I know what I mean. If you look right in there, it looks like it's been.
People rent them for like their kids to jump on and stuff.
Yeah, those big old
trampoline type.
Yeah, that's what it
looks like.
So I mean, I have to agree with that lady in the picture there. But oh man, well, we've had a good talk tonight. I can get back to my list here. Now there's one thing I'll go to, but I can't never get to go back to it for some reason. There we go. I know that you sent me something, so I'll go ahead and run down here to this. A federal appeals court on Thursday denied Trump administration emergency request to block a judge order requiring the U.S. government to return Kilmar Abrego Garcia, an illegal immigrant from El Salvador with a violent criminal history and alleged gang ties, who was deported to the El Salvador mega prison. And I know that you would.
Yeah, I sent you some pictures. Here is that gentleman. That's him. He was deported. What do we know about him, Mike? He is an MS-13 gang member. He was here in the United States illegally. I can bring up documentation where the Department of Justice had documents.
Is that what these are?
That some of those, yes, that they expose this Armando Garcia as a verified MS-13 gang member. They also, in 2021, had a protective order for abusing his wife, for abusing his wife, which proves the Democrats are saying that he was a family man that was misjustly labeled and and basically inaccurately identified and taken to El Salvador. No, he's an MS-13 gang member. He's not a family man. He is here illegally and also confessed to being here illegally, does not have proper documentation. So he was deported. What have the Democrats done? The Democrats got on an airplane and did what? They flew to El Salvador demanding to talk to the president and want the return of this individual to the United States of America. Okay, well here's the question. When you look at this, specifically one individual in particular is Democratic Senator Chris Holland, who traveled to El Salvador hoping to bring Armando Garcia back to the United States, which didn't happen. Every one of these Democrats were eager to save this individual, but they refused to sign the Laken Riley Act. If you remember, Laken Riley was an American citizen that was raped, murdered, and left dead by an illegal alien that came across the border unvetted, unchecked into this country. And since then, the United States government has imposed the Laken Riley Act, which basically mandates the detention without bail of certain non-citizens arrested or charged with certain crimes. So this gentleman is detained. He was illegally here. He was deported. However, the Democrats have went to El Salvador demanding his return. Well, I got a question for you. Why'd those same Democrats not go over to Israel and demand that Hamas give up American citizens?
Right.
They're not going after Americans, Mike. They're going after illegals. It sets the wrong precedent in this country. It tells you, and I hate to say this, that the Democrats hate America. They hate America because if they loved America, they would be about America first and America first policies. The Laken Riley Act is an important piece of legislation. Why? Because you have individuals who do not have any right to be in this country, who are here illegally and are perpetrating crimes against American citizens, and nothing happens to them. And I may make people mad when I say that. I'm not against immigration. I'm just against certain forms of immigration where these people, 21 million people over the last 4 years, Mike, got into this country. And that is a senator. That is a senator, Chris Holland.
Hang on here. Let me take this off here so y'all can see this.
And this goes to show you some of the documentation. This is in 2017. It's important, this shows you how times change. It's important to go after gangs like MS-13 members, but it is an insult to decency and common sense for dreamers to be targeted for deportation. Listen, I agree. The American dream is an important thing, but do it legally. Do it the right way. If you do it the right way, nobody's going to say a word to you.
Oh, I agree with that 100%. I mean, I don't. It just makes you wonder, what these people are up to. I mean, you would think, or I know most of us would, want to get, these MS-13 gang members out of here because they're dangerous. That's
You
one of the
said
more
the word dangerous.
That's one of the more dangerous groups of all of them.
They have been labeled as a terrorist organization.
And so that's what I'm saying. But now, these Democrat senators, like, the fellow there and some of these other ones, they want to go down there and get this guy and bring him back.
Yeah, they want to bring him home.
It's like, I saw a tag today that showed this picture here that's on the screen right now. That someone said, he's already home. He's where he's supposed to be, But it's like, that's true. I mean, at least he's not here. They can keep him there.
Well, you've seen the number of incidents on the border as far as crime rates at the border have decreased dramatically since Trump has taken office. Deportations are taking place. You've got a lot of communities that are fighting against this. Several communities that have said they will not participate in the deportation program that Trump has. Listen, folks, why do they want those people over here? I'm going to lay it out for you, plain and simple. You better understand it. Every 10 years, there's a census conducted. The census is done by the federal government. What that census does is it takes a statistical account of the number of people in a state. And what it does is it determines representation for that state at the national level. So, are illegals counted in the census? Yes.
Well, yeah.
So it's a statistical account of how many people live in a certain residence. If there are 50 people that live there, all 50 are counted. That goes in the count. That can change representations. If you talk about the immigration process that took place over the last 4 years, most of them were taken to sanctuary cities. The only problem is initially they were welcomed and billions of dollars were spent. New York spent close to $6 billion a week on mass illegals for hotels, foods, EBT cards, all that stuff, Mike. Yet you've got veterans in this country that are doing
Starving.
what? Starving.
Right.
You've got hardworking Americans that are on fixed incomes that can't get by. You've got people that are elderly that are drawing SSI for having sustained some type of injury
And still trying to work.
and disabled, trying to work,
And still trying to
but
work.
yet we're allowing these people to get phones, EBT cards, hotels, taking veterans out of hotels in New York and putting them back on the
Wasn't
street.
there a
to-
reloadable credit card in New
Yeah.
York at one time? You know, I think it's
$1,000.
And you know, like our credit cards, you swipe them,
You lose money.
you lose money. Theirs is they could swipe down to the last dollar,
And then
the next month rolls over, $1,000 loads back up again.
And I want to say it was more than $1,000. It was about $3,000-4,000.
I'd like to have one of them credit cards.
But you think about this. Why do they want this? Because it can change representation in states, and it can allow their agendas to be fulfilled. Because if they can get a majority in Congress, in the Senate or in the House, they can introduce legislation to change everything to be normal. And that's why they're doing it. That's why the Democrats are supporting mass immigration. And basically, it was an invasion over the last 4 years. You have to agree with that.
Yeah, I think it was somewhere in the ballpark that they talked about 10 million. About 10 million people, in the country illegally. And I'm sure there's a lot more, but
most of them were between the age of 18 and 26.
Which is
most of them were males,
military age
You're
males.
right. Militants.
So I mean, think of it this way: Civil War breaks loose in this country. There's 10 million already, that come from other countries that you can say, hey, we need you to fight. Here you go.
Well, ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, has got a tough job because they're having to hunt down these people that are not here with legal documentation, and they're having to return them to their homes. And people are aggravated to see these people go. Well, I'm sorry. I don't want to see anybody be hoisted out of their homes in the middle of the night, put in a vehicle, and taken to an airport and placed on a plane. But you got federal judges in this country that are putting injunctions to keep this from happening. The President of the United States was bestowed these powers by the Constitution. He is over the executive departments. Some of those departments, the Department of Homeland Security, it's a national security interest. Communities are being affected by this.
So, let's just say me and you say, heck with it. We're going to drive either to the Canadian border or the Mexican border. And we're going to sneak somehow or another across one of those borders. And we're just going to live freely in that country. When we're caught, what do you think is going to happen?
We're probably going to be detained. We're going to be put in jail. We're going to be put in a prison for an extended period of time.
Exactly. And maybe eventually brought back to the United States.
And if your government sees fit to try to help you and you know somebody, they might extradite you back to the United States. They might. I'm not saying they will.
We're not going to.
We're not trying to put these people in prisons. We're just trying to tell them what.
Go back.
Go home.
Go where you come from.
Come here. If you want to come here, do it the legal, documented way. Go through the naturalization process.
Yeah. But if me and you wanted to live in Canada, we would get all the proper documents, everything we need, go through, get all the visas, everything you need.
You said visas. You have to secure
and
those.
Then you would have to go the legal way. Then you got to become a legal citizen there, so you'd have to go through all of that stuff, ever how long that would take. And then you would become a citizen there. That's the way that we think that it should be here, which is exactly how it should be.
Okay. Rules are rules. They're not written. Rules are not written to hurt people. Rules are written to maintain order and discipline in society. That's why. You don't look at rules as a punishment. You look at rules as a means by which everything should be run smoothly and transparent.
No, you're right. Well, here's a rule coming out, and I don't really agree. I don't understand this. I'll just tell you, I got it from Fox News, which even more shocks me. But last summer, I took Aiden to get his permit, and they got this picture hanging here, and it says "Real ID," and I'm like, "What exactly is this?" And it says, "Starting next year, you have to have the Real ID to be able to fly in the United States." So if we want to take a flight from Lexington to Texas, anywhere in the United States, I first thought, I asked, I said, "Is that flying overseas?" They're like, "No, you have to have a Real ID to fly here in the country." And it would roll out this year. It's going to come out this year. Well, and last summer, Donald Trump wasn't the president. Well, this was the story today. And then I realized it was even older than I thought it was. Conservatives sound the alarm over Trump administration's Real ID rollout. The Real ID Act was passed in 2005, but the federal government has yet to implement it for the last 20 years, or for 20 years later. It requires all U.S. travelers to be Real ID compliant when boarding domestic flights. The Transportation or TSA announced last week that the Real ID would go in effect on May 7th, and there are no other state issue IDs that could be accepted for air travel. So now they're saying, because it's going to go into effect under Donald Trump's administration, and it was his, whatever Pam Bondi is, Attorney General that's putting it in, that it's the Trump administration's. Well, for one, it was passed in 2005, and nobody's ever put it in. And last summer, I read and was asking questions about it at the driver's license place. But now, because it's going to happen, and it actually had this year's date on it, when they was going to do it. But because it's happening under Trump's watch, now it's his fault. It's coming down that Trump's going to be the one getting all that. And it says conservatives are sounding the alarm.
What is the purpose of the Real ID?
Well, a lot of different things about the Real ID. I mean, it'll help you when it comes to voting.
Okay, so you got to vote.
It's going to help you.
Voting integrity is number one at the top of the list.
You with obviously,
that means the only people that are going to vote in our state and federal elections are people that are citizens.
Why would you not want that? I actually told the woman last year at the driver's license place, I said, "I don't fly. I've never been on an airplane in my life." I said, "But my license don't expire until next year in December, which will be this year in December." I said, "But I think I'll get the Real ID just to have it, because it says you have to have it to be able to get into federal buildings," which I don't never go to no federal buildings. But it's like, if I ever wanted to go to a federal building and just tour or do something like that, you have the Real ID, and then you're probably going to have to pass all your checks and everything to have it or something. But I thought, heck, I think it's in December. Yeah, it's December when mine expires, and I thought, heck, I'll get it. I mean, I ain't going to get on no airplane that I know of. I don't want to, anyway. Don't trust them. But, yeah, I saw that was the big issue today. They was blaming the Trump administration for the Real ID. And I'm like, hell, it's been around 20 years.
Okay, well, let's just go further. They also are blaming the Trump administration for DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. The Department of Government Efficiency was initially created by Barack Obama. It had a different name. It's been thus renamed. It's the same initiative. You're looking at government waste. Okay, what's wrong with a Real ID? What's wrong with election integrity? What's wrong with you have to have a Real ID to get into a federal building? You're taking necessary precautions. That's all you're doing. You're allowing your country that has allowed security risks and potential hazards to exist,
and you can also
which has led to problems.
When you renew your license, you can do 4 or 8 years. So you could buy for a few dollars more. You could buy the 8-year and then have your real ID for 8 years. Then, and you can go to all the federal buildings, fly where you want. Then
But you've got verification that you are a what?
you're a U.S. citizen.
That's the big one. You're a citizen. Real ID. You're not here
So you have a
illegally.
regular driver's license. That doesn't confirm your citizenship.
What, your driver's license?
Just a regular one.
That's just a regular, that's just a regular ID.
But you have to show stuff to verify who you are at that point in time when you first get it, right?
Social security card.
And birth certificate.
Birth certificate, which shows your place of birth in the
United States.
There's the big one.
Right.
But can a birth certificate be a forged document?
Right. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
It could be.
Yeah, I'm
be.
sure they could forge.
Me ask AI if they'll make one for us.
Just think about
But no,
it.
it can be.
All it does is it provides more security standards in place and safeguards. What's wrong with a lot of people look at this as an invasion into their privacy, that it's going to restrict their rights. Listen, folks,
No, strict no right.
I realize that sometimes individual rights get restricted during certain times. We're living in a time right now where we're trying to recover from the last 4 years where 21 million people came across the border and invaded this country. And just simply came over. Ask the families of people who have been injured, harmed, or killed by somebody illegally, and they would tell you that this could have been prevented if the person had never been allowed to do what? Come in this country in the first place, unvetted and unchecked. Another question I've got, supposedly there are 85,000 children missing that came across the border unaccompanied. I'd like to know where those 85,000 children are. We tend to forget about a lot of things because of distractions. They keep you distracted to get your mind off of all this stuff. Give you another thing. Have you noticed we talked a little bit about it last week, but things have been hush hush on the Jeffrey Epstein list.
Pam
Bondi told us within 24 hours it's going to be released to the public.
Lord, it's been 24 days, or maybe longer than that.
All right, we still haven't seen seen the first name on that list. Haven't seen an arrest. So what I'm going to tell you is, Ghislaine Maxwell is still behind bars for pedophilia and basically soliciting children for sexual deviant acts to people that are unknown. There's not a single one of the perpetrators that have come to justice yet. So, I got a lot of questions that I think need to be answered. And those are, why are they not going through with all this stuff?
That's exactly right.
Why are you not doing all this? Why do we keep getting all these distractions? It's one distraction after another. We're going to send up Jeff Bezos,
what did you call it earlier?
a dildo with a crew of 8 women.
A blow up toy at that or whatever it is.
I don't mean that being mean. Like I said, I'm just telling you. But it is the truth. That's a distraction. It keeps your attention off of
nobody.
things
I don't. I say nobody really cares about them.
But the JFK files. What have we heard on the JFK files?
JFK was supposed to have been a big thing.
Okay, what have we heard? That they were released unredacted. They allowed you to read the 80,000 pages of documents. If you could sit through reading 80,000 pages, you can find out a lot about it.
If you read 40,000, I'll read the other 40, and we'll talk about it next year when we get done.
But you don't hear a lot of this. We are expecting arrests once we see that the Jeffrey Epstein, we're not getting that.
That's what I told her the other night. I said, I've gotten to the point now, like when I'm looking through stuff and it says, sometimes it'll pop up and say Pam Bondi's this and that. I'm like, I don't care what, until Pam Bondi starts showing me what she's going to do. I don't. It's hard for me to get behind her anymore and say, well, this is what she's going. Now I may be back on here next week and say she's the greatest thing in the world because maybe something happens between now and then. But I, like you, it's been a month, 2 months now since the Epstein thing was coming out in 24 hours.
And then you've got...
And now we ain't got nothing.
And then you've got the issue with, and like I said, a very controversial issue in my opinion. And like I said, I kind of tread this like on thin ice, so to speak. You got the death of Austin Metcalf.
I brought that up last week.
You've got that issue.
And now he's been released on bond and had a big press conference today where they're blaming the victim's family for the reason that he killed the kid. And it's like,
Carmelo Anthony, for those of you who know what it's about, Carmelo Anthony went to a track meet, supposedly got insulted, correct?
yeah.
Went into a tent full of high school athletes, took a knife and stabbed an innocent person, confessed of that crime, had his bail set at $1 million, and a judge lowered it to 200. I want to say it was $200,000. $200,000. And then here you have people within certain communities.
And he raised more than that on a GoFundMe page.
They had a GoFundMe platform that raised $500,000. And since then, his mother and father have went and purchased a Cadillac Escalade, and they're renting a home that is an estimated worth of $900,000. Think about this.
And yet
he served 12 days. 12 days in pre-trial detention. 12 days. Confessed of a crime.
He gets out and he's worth $250,000. Got all the thing. Gets to go on national TV today and stand there with a lawyer that blames the victim. That it was the victim that started it all the reasons.
Excuse me.
I know last week we talked about it, and I remember saying that he had actually been in trouble and been suspended from school previously for having a knife at school earlier in the school year.
And then today, in a live press conference, the minister, I guess these people rely on, Minister Dominique Alexander, claimed that all the funds, $500,000 through the GoFundMe platform that the family had generated, were from fraud, that they haven't received a dime of that money.
So he goes to jail and they could just buy big Escalades and rent new houses and everything.
And then that same individual, that minister, Dominique Alexander, compared Carmelo Anthony to Kyle Rittenhouse. If you compare the two, it's totally different. Totally different. And like I said, I'm not. The sad part is we've got innocent young people in this country.
There ain't no similarities at all between the
committing acts that are hurting and harming people, and they have no recourse. None whatsoever.
This kid had already been in trouble numerous times for weapons at school and all this other stuff. And then, there's ways around it. You're going into the tent with these athletes and just start stabbing this kid to death in front of his brother, who was standing right there. A twin brother, maybe, wasn't it? And, and then turn around and play the victim card. I was provoked. That's what they said today. Said he was provoked. And it's like, it don't matter if you get provoked. Walk up to him and punch him or something. Don't go up and stab him. Go up and just say, keep your mouth shut. Whatever. If there was something said that provoked him, why does it result in pulling out a blade and doing what he done?
But like I said, I feel it's very unfortunate. Here we have a teen that has his whole life ahead of him commit a hideous act that takes the life of another teen. And it's in the media, and a lot of this is T-shirts that.
Look at this,
$25,
and I would imagine they probably made a fortune off of them for a lot of supporters and stuff. And that GoFundMe page, we actually showed the GoFundMe page last week. I don't think it was called something. It wasn't GoFundMe. It was something else. But it was like a GoFundMe. It was the same kind of thing, like donate to this or something like that. How many teams have you known to go to other teams' setting area to cheer for our team? It used to happen all the time. Argue about it, fight it out, whatever, but do not kill. And that's Bobby. And it's like, exactly. I mean, you could go over there and say, hey, dude, keep your mouth shut. Don't be saying all that. But you pull out a big switchblade and go to stabbing this kid. It's like, I don't see how there could be justice for Carmelo or whatever that shirt says, justice for Anthony, whatever. I don't see how it's justice when that's the guy that killed that. That's your murderer right there. I don't know what.
Making it a race thing, aren't they?
Right here's the Kyle Rittenhouse comparison. Kyle Rittenhouse was in, I can't remember what area he lived in.
He lived in Illinois,
but they had
went to Wisconsin.
They had all that stuff going on in Wisconsin out in the streets, and he went out there with the gun and was approached or whatever, and ended up shooting somebody. And You know, there's a major difference there. I mean, there was riots in the streets, and this.
And
You
he
know,
had a $2 million bond, $2 million that was not reduced. He spent 86 days in pretrial detention. The two are not comparable.
no, they're not comparable.
You know,
I mean, I get.
and I'm not saying what Kyle Rittenhouse did was right.
No, that's what I'm.
I'm
That's
not
what
saying
I'm
it's
trying to
right.
figure
I'm
out.
just saying the level of justice that was bestowed upon one individual compared to the other is not comparable. You know,
Well, here underneath the picture here on the right, you'll see the kid that had passed, and this is
the judge
this is
that
the
reduced
judge.
the bond, the bail for the bond from $1 million down to $200,000.
Knowing that the family had raised $500,000 in that GoFundMe page or whatever, that.
But typically, correct me if I'm wrong, because I watch a lot of Law and Order. Typically, when somebody commits a crime of murder, there's a bail set for $1 million.
And it usually don't come
It
down.
don't come down.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Law and Order makes me
Well,
an expert,
you're a crime scene investigator, son.
but I watch a lot of it, and I just like, but it's almost like, and like I said, I'm not picking on any one of these individuals, but it's almost like they want to create a racial hatred issue in America.
That's all it's about.
And here we go again. And
that's all.
we don't need that. We don't need that.
I hate to be this way. If it was
right.
the other way around,
divided.
if it was the other way around, and the white kid had stabbed the black kid, well, I mean, he would still be in the news, but it would be a bigger story then, because then it would be full race. It would be just plumb everything race. But that's what it is right now, is they're using the race card to say this black kid was provoked, and then he stood up for himself. But you still don't have to kill another kid, no matter what color he is. You don't have to kill another kid because you're feeling provoked. If it had been a white boy, it would have even been on TV. Yeah, it wouldn't even been on TV. Former Judge Joe Brown said he will get first-degree voluntary manslaughter. Media always takes an opportunity to divide. Oh, the media is awful. I mean, right now, the best show on television right now is the Mike and Matt show. I mean, it's probably where you're going to get most of the real information. I used to try to watch like WKYT and some of our local news, but they're awful. I mean, it's awful. You flip it over there right now just to watch Chris Bailey or Jim Caldwell's local weather forecast, and all they're talking about is this same stuff.
They you know how they do that, Mike? Okay, instead of the news running it from this angle, teen kills teen. They don't run it from that angle.
No,
they run it from African American teen kills.
Emotionally sensitive words.
That's right, emotionally sensitive, that weighs on the emotions. It's called yellow journalism. You sway your voters. And that's exactly what they've done. They've done it since the early 1900s to convince people in support of something and convince people to go against something. And what it does is it creates divisions. If they would have just put it out to me, a high school teen commits murder against a high school teen.
That would have been.
That's
the story.
That's the story.
But they want to do emotionally charged words.
Bobby says black, white, or red. Black, white, or red, all over. Murder is murder, and that's right. It don't matter what the kid is, Right teen kills teen. Yeah. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. It could be so easy, but it ain't like that. I mean, as soon as it happens, huh?
Bobby's still awake.
I'll tell you what, we're gonna have a conversation and a half at dinner this weekend. She's firing on all cylinders tonight.
Something's got her fired.
She must have something over here in the store next door that she wants me to come and see, because she's like, I actually may need to go see her. I may need to get some sponsorship or something other here. See what we can do here. She's firing on all cylinders. She is like eating it up.
But I mean, the media never ceases to exist when there's an opportunity to create controversial headlines that can separate and divide us. Because the more chaos
That's
they
right.
create, it keeps us distracted from what's really going on behind the scenes. And there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that people don't know about. I'm
Did you
telling you.
see
The
Caroline?
manipulation of the stock market is another one. They
Caroline
manipulated the
Levitt.
entire stock market last week for a whole week.
Did you see the interview? She went to. There was a woman on there. I think her name was Tammy. She had lost a kid. I can't remember what the kid's name was though. Rachel, somebody, Rachel. Anyway, there was a one of the reporters went to ask a question, and Caroline Levitt ignored her and ended the press conference. And people were like, "Well, who was it that asked the question?" And the mom comes up to the podium and she says, "Please report the news as it is. This is someone's kid you're talking about. This is someone's family member you're talking about and stuff. And you guys are reporting." She said, and she was talking about the border crisis. So apparently it was something that happened at the border or through the border. But anyway, she called media out right there about what the game is they play for views.
Well, like tonight, I went over to WKYT.com thinking, let's see what's going on locally. And I clicked on local, state. The most recent story was updated 2 weeks ago. So it tells you that everything on their page is something national. Well, if I wanted to watch national news, I'd watch Fox News or CNN, MSNBC, but that's what I'm saying.
CNN?
No. Well, I'd watch them over some of them. It ain't no different. But I mean, what I'm getting at is when your own local news is all they're talking about, it's all the crap going on nationally. It just goes to show you, it's like, why call it local news? I guess we can watch the weather, and that's about the only thing they get right.
Well, we call it predictive programming. It's all predictive. If you turn to one, they're talking about it. You turn to the other, they're talking about it. Every one of them pretty much run the same stories. They're doing the same thing, and their the predictive programming controls your mindset, whether you think it does or not. Best thing you can do is not watch the news.
No.
Because as I said, I didn't think of it as race when I saw this. My question is why would a young team slay another young team? What caused
Yeah, I never even thought about what colors or anything like that. It's like, what provoked him to do that at
a track
meet? It's like, it don't matter if it's a football game, basketball, baseball, whatever. But it's like, what would provoke him enough to do that at any event, concert? And
I can
but I'm
understand
like you.
somebody.
I'm not. Look, I didn't look at it.
I can
as
see
race.
somebody getting mad and getting irritated and wanting to punch somebody or hit somebody.
Go for it.
But you're taking a knife and you got.
Do we know the reasoning? I mean, what his reason is? Did it say?
He was provoked.
That's all they keep saying.
That he was. Hold on just a second here. Supposedly he got insulted. I don't know if that happened or not. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't read any news media.
Insulted. Well, you can't use deadly force if somebody uses bad language or hurts your feelings. That's not grounds for deadly force. Right, Michael? Didn't you learn that?
Right. You're having the issue that I have. I typed in Carmelo Anthony. It kept giving me the basketball player. Like, it ain't him.
You'd think it would give you a rationale.
See, Bobby's talking about Joe Brown here. She said the team, the guy, the boy that killed Anthony, said that he did it. And Joe Brown says that he's talked too much. No turning back now. Self-defense. There can't be a self-defense now because he's already admitted his guilt. He's already said he done it.
Yeah, he confessed. He confessed to it. I don't know. But what are all these distractions keeping us from getting our hands on? I'll give you another one. People are not aware of this. They can do their research. Um, Documents were released this week on the Crossfire hurricane that members of the government may have conspired to collude Donald Trump with Russia to help hinder his 2016 election efforts to become the president.
No, not really.
Crossfire hurricane documents are out, but you're not going to hear a lot about that, Mike. Why are you not going to hear a lot about that? Because you got all this other stuff. You got 8 women going to outer space. You've got Carmelo and Austin Metcalf uh, uh, incident in Texas, if I'm not mistaken. That's where it was. You've got other things that are distracting. They're trying to keep your attention off this stuff because what it is you've got documents that have been released that implicate people in wrongdoing that could ultimately lead to treason, which means you die a traitor's death.
That's right.
So, I mean, it's just one thing after another.
Well, I did read one good thing, though, on the website today in Kentucky. It said the Kentucky Department of Education plans to remove DEI initiatives from all public schools. So, I know that was something they were fighting a few weeks ago. I think it actually was vetoed, by the governor, but then was overridden. And
Well,
he went to the other team's tent and sat. He was asked to leave. Said make me pretty much. Austin went to take him up on the challenge, and he stabbed him in the heart. So, when he said make me, that boy pretty much grabbed him and said, "Here, I'll throw you out of our tent." And then he was stabbed. For you WWE people out there, WWE superstar Roman Reigns comes out and supports Donald Trump. Just the head of WrestleMania this coming weekend says that he actually voted for Donald Trump and he fully supports the Trump. Said there are some things that that he don't agree that Trump says, but he does. He did vote for Donald Trump, so that means probably Roman Reigns will be canceled because just like with Hulk Hogan, shows up at one of the rallies or whatever right before the election, and now Hulk Hogan gets booed out of the arena, every time that he shows up. And I'm like, there wouldn't be a WrestleMania. There wouldn't be another wrestling event if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan. There wouldn't be none of that stuff. But now Reigns, I've seen he's been getting a lot of heat on there today. People like saying they're going to unfollow him. They're not going to buy his merch
cancel
anymore.
culture, pretty much.
Yeah, basically you dig your own grave if you're a professional athlete and they find out that you support Donald Trump, you're done. I don't know what people think about Shaq. I saw a video of Shaq the other night at the UFC fight where he walked through the crowd to go shake hands with Trump. So, maybe there ain't no fans of Shaq anymore either. But
Well, it's kind of sad to think that
that's the world
we
we're in now.
we live in. We live in where
there used to be a time when I grew up. It don't matter how you voted. Everybody got along. Everybody sat down and had dinner together. You didn't talk about what Trump's doing or what Biden or Obama or Hillary or anybody's doing. You didn't talk about it. You talked about tomorrow morning's deer hunt, or we're going to fish this weekend, or turkey hunt, or the Kentucky game that's going to be on. You had something to talk about, or you sat around talking about old times, and nowadays it's like, everything is division. You have to find a way to divide everything now. And I don't watch a whole lot of professional sports anyway, but it's in all sports pretty much. If you're a pretty well known name even in college, and they find out you're a Trump guy, you're canceled. You probably never get a contract anywhere. I don't know. It's wild. Anybody's a big fan of Home Alone? Home Alone 2 director Chris Columbus says he wants Donald Trump's cameo removed despite him only being in the film for less than 5 seconds. And what they don't really tell you is Donald Trump at the time owned the Plaza Hotel that scene was filmed in, and he allowed them to film in the Plaza Hotel. So, that was the only thing he asked was, I want one little cameo. Like when Kevin walks in, he's going to tell him where the lobby is, and he goes away. So he allowed them to film in his building, and now the director of the movie is trying to have that 5-second scene cut out of the movie because he said he don't like it. And that's what I'm getting at. Donald Trump gave them permission to do it. They loved him back then. But now now that he's the president, we got to remove his cameos.
I don't know if it's because he's the president that they dislike him. I think he is single-handedly attacking institutions and organizations that have helped contribute to this country being weakened, and they like their way of life. He is attacking that for the betterment of the people. He's giving this country back to the people.
Well, if I remember correctly, maybe I'm wrong, but didn't he campaign on that?
Everything that he's done, he's campaigned.
Didn't he campaign that he was going to do this, he was going to do this, he was going to do, and everything that he's doing right now is exactly what he said he was going to do.
And most people
down to
that
right where
voted
you're
for
at
him.
right now, where you just said that, what he's doing all that. Is he doing what you voted for?
Exactly. And most people that voted for him will agree. This is why I voted for him. I voted for him because I want him to initiate audits of federal programs. If those programs are not doing what they are purposefully stated to do, spending taxpayers' dollars on purposeful events and actions, get rid of them. Yeah, I'm 100% for that. Did I vote for Donald Trump to eliminate illegal immigration and secure the border?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think the whole 4 years that Biden was in office, I don't think there's a program that me and you done where we didn't talk about the border. It'd be hard to find one on there where we didn't mention something going on.
I voted for him because, one, I feel like we need government efficiency. Did I vote for him for tariffs? Yes. I'm going to tell you why I voted for him. Because we need America first policies in trade. Countries have basically taken us behind the woodshed for 50 years.
There was a lady there today.
Well, I mean, today he
can't think about it. I can't think of which country she was from, but she came there today, and one of the reporters tried to, I don't know, say something kind of smart to her, and she said, "I am here to make a deal today." She even shut the reporter down. She's like, "I'm here to make a deal," and that's what so many countries are going to do.
Well, let me give you an example.
He's going to keep going.
Okay, the United States of America provides military protection for South Korea. We were involved in the military conflict known as the Korean War, 1953, North Korea versus South Korea. It was a civil war. We're trying to protect and ensure democracy in South Korea. We got involved in that. Stalemate cost us roughly about 53,000 Americans. My numbers may be inaccurate, but I'm pretty close. 50,000 plus, we'll put it that, died in the Korean conflict. Okay. We provide military protection for South Korea today, Mike. Mm-hmm. Today. But yet South Korea has stolen our automobile industry and our electronics industry. They've stolen it. Everything is made in South Korea electronically. All cars, pretty much, South Korea. All right. We also provide protection for Japan in Southeast Asia. We protected Japan. We destroyed Japan with the 2 atomic bombs. We go in and we economically rebuild the cities that we destroyed. They have a military, but it's not big enough to provide protection for themselves. We do it free. What did they do to us? They closed our markets to our cars. But yet they can sell Toyotas here where? In the United States. So what's happening is they in fair trade deals, we've got taken to the woodshed. Okay, Canada, We provide military protection for all of North America. Yet we have a large, and I mean absolutely large, trade deficit with Canada. The U.S. does. Okay? We provide military protection and security for all of Europe. All of Europe.
Europe's who was there
We have
today.
a 300 European Union probably
European,
was that.
the Italian Prime Minister, the European Union was who was there today and agreed to cut the deal.
We've got a $300 billion trade deficit with Europe. We're $300 billion. We got a $36 trillion national debt. Let me tell you what, all this has got us, these so-called unfair trade practices that have been initiated, NAFTA, all this stuff. We've got taken behind the woodshed. We've got deindustrialization of the heartland. Most of what used to be called the Rust Belt.
Mm-hmm.
You take like Chicago, New York, Pittsburgh, Boston. Most of those places are not producing steel.
They used to thrive.
Okay. Ohio was a big one. Steel industry. Armco Steel was big. You could always go up on the river and probably find a job in Ohio working in the iron industry and make good money. Deindustrialization of the heartland is what's happened because of these unfair trade deals that we've got taken to the woodshed. We're imposing a 10% tariff on people. They're proposing 34, 57, 100, some of them 245 plus % on our goods that are being imported. Okay, we've got the destruction of the American dream. How am I supposed to make it in this country when all the good paying jobs are what? They've been destroyed. Okay, go further.
Somewhere else.
You've got the eradication of the industrial and manufacturing base in this country. Most companies picked up their factories and moved them elsewhere because of cheap labor. And then they can bring their goods here, sell it at a higher price, and get rich off of American citizens. All right? $36 trillion national debt. It's about time we got a president that says we're not going to provide military security for the world. We're not going to allow you to rape us in market trade. We're going to do what is right by Americans. I voted for that. I'm 100% behind tire tariffs, and I'm 100% behind what Donald Trump did yesterday. 2 days ago, August 5th, April 15th, he imposed a 245% tariff on China because of retaliatory actions. You keep playing with the bull, you're going to get the what? You're going to find out, China. China's going to find out. Everybody says, well, I feel sorry for China. I don't feel sorry for China. They have made trillions of dollars.
I would say most of the stuff in this room's probably got made in China.
Made in China. You're right. They made trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars at the expense of American taxpayers' dollars. And what I'm going to tell you is we're self-sufficient. We can be self-sufficient. They need us worse than we need them. We just stop buying from China and start manufacturing everything here. You increase employment. You increase wages. Interest rates go down. You got lower gas prices, lower grocery bills. You watch and see what happens. The tariff deal should have been done years ago. Hillary Clinton said in 2016, the plan for dealing with China included targeted tariffs on anyone exploiting American workers. And Donald Trump is doing exactly what those people suggested we do, that were fearful of doing it and allow countries around the world to get advantageous advantages over us.
Yep.
So,
and the same people today are turning around acting like it's a big deal, not knowing that they're not on record saying
it. You're right. So, you got, I got quotes on here I could say, and people probably say, I can't believe you said that. If you actually believe the rich should pay more taxes, you must also believe the government spends their tax revenue reasonably, responsibly. There you go. Everybody's laughing now. Yeah. And if you believe that, you are absolutely hopeless.
Yeah, there ain't no chance.
No, they want the rich to pay more taxes so they can do what with that money, Mike? Yeah. They can spend it on programs that are frivolous, and it gets kickbacks to certain people. I'm sorry, I'm telling you. I'll give you an example. Do you know this? That USAID, the United States Agency of International Development, gave a contract to Whoopi Goldberg $19 million to promote diversity on The View. $19 million, Mike.
Yeah, they give me $19 million. I'll talk about whatever they want me to.
Now you understand why.
But that's why they are the way they are.
Okay, they paid the USAID paid media outlets $4 million. $4 million, media outlets around the country to promote Vladimir Zelensky as the man of the year. And what did he get? He ended up winning, I want to say.
I think it was last year.
Yeah, 1 year he won. Yeah.
Year before, maybe.
Yeah.
Might have been last year, might have been Trump. And then the
year
before, it was him.
So what I'm telling you is they spend all this money promoting things. And I saw today that Zelensky wants Donald Trump to come to Ukraine and see all the devastation. What he needs to tell you is this. This ought to tell you something about what they think about Americans. There's a war going on over in Ukraine, right?
That's what they say.
Okay, well, amid the ongoing conflict, and people, you can look this up, Ukraine has embarked on the ambitious construction of the Goro Mountain Resort, a $1.5 billion ski project in the Carpathian Mountains.
Must be worried about them Russians picking them off on that ski resort, ain't they?
$1.5 billion set to open in 2028. $1.5 billion of American taxpayers' money that was allocated to help them defend themselves is being spent on a ski resort. Go look that up and see if I'm right. What you're going to find, I'll bet you I'm 100% right. No, what they've done is they've sent all this money over there. It's unaccounted for. It's unchecked. They can't audit it, and as a result of that, some of it is being dispersed back here to politicians. Mike, they're getting rich. Can't live on $174,000 is.
I think I can do pretty good with that.
But in Washington, that'd be hard to do.
No,
but these people are going in worth $1 million and coming out worth $150 million. No way on
$170,000 salary.
No way. So
I mean, even if you add that up, that ain't even $1 million in the 4 years they're there, or 8 years.
That's exactly right. So what you've got is you've got some misappropriation of funds going on. I voted for Donald Trump to audit those agencies
and figure out where
our money's going. Why? Because I guarantee you, I'm not going to spend more money than I have in my checking account unless I'm prepared to go deeply into debt. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, that's what I love asking people, especially people that I know. Are you happy for what you voted for?
Now, I also voted for transparency. I want to know. I want the Epstein files to come out. I think we're deserving. I want to know information about the JFK assassination, the MLK assassination, the RFK assassination. I want to see the 9/11 files. I want to know if everything is on the up and up. And is that fair?
That's right. Should be.
It should be fair.
And
transparency.
And anything like that's been all over the news and in our history books should be released to the public. If there's nothing to hide, release it to the public. That's the way I feel.
But we've still yet to find out what the first
any of it
information.
Any of it.
Because I think it unlocks Pandora's box. I think you're going to find that there are people involved in this that
are still around,
playing an important part in directing the initiatives of this country, and it's scary. It's scary that we're allowing those people to continue to thrive and be in those jobs. Anybody else if your name's on that list and you did those things, you would be where?
You'd be gone.
You'd be gone.
Probably by now done been executed or something.
But there's a lot of things going on, and like I said, it's I also throw this out there. You got a lot of distractions to keep RFK Jr. kind of hush hush.
Yeah.
He's come out with some information related to autism
in children.
Yeah, and basically saying that
was actually a shocking
Yeah, saying that some of that basically the cause of autism is environmental exposure. That genes do not cause epidemics. So you can go look that up. It gives you
Wasn't it 1 in 12.5 boys in the state of California is born with autism?
Yeah,
1 in 12.5.
Autism rate for boys in America is 1 in 20.
And in California, it was 1 in 12.
California, it's 1 in 12.5.
That is crazy. I mean, that
in just 2 years ago, autism was 1 in 36. Now it's 1 in 20. By 2030, it'll be 1 in
probably 1 in 5, maybe 1 in 10.
2. 1 in down to ever 2. 50% of people will be autistic that are born. But, 20 years ago, it was 1 in 150 children. 25% of the kids diagnosed with autism today are nonverbal and not toilet trained. They are kids. The prevalence of this is happening. We need to find the underlying cause of this.
Yeah, because something obviously is caused. And I think we all kind of have an idea, what.
Well, I'll give you a better one. Autism prevalence has increased 16.1% since 2020. It's up 16.1%.
So what has happened since 2020?
It's
a lot of requirements.
Since 2000, this is not 1986, liability for pharmaceutical companies was resolved, eliminated by Ronald Reagan. Autism rates are up 384%. Since 2000, 304%. Since 2020, 16.1%. There's something causing this.
Yeah.
And it needs to be looked into. And if we can scientifically reduce it and eliminate it, we need to do it.
Yeah, I think we all kind of have an idea.
So,
what that is,
his agenda is to make America healthy. I know he come under some scrutiny this week because he advised people to go get the measles vaccination. Well, behind the scenes, I think between me and you, there may be some blackmailing going on. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't have some information on him and he has to kind of walk a fine line.
Yeah.
It happens. But it's going to be interesting to see where the next week takes us. Sunday's Easter Sunday, very important holiday.
A lot of people get a big 3-day weekend.
I don't get a 3-day weekend, unfortunately. But I wish I did.
Are you guys in school?
Yeah, we have school tomorrow. We're an academic institution of higher learning. We're making sure our kids are getting that education. Unlike, I'm sorry, I just take a jab at you.
Hey, if it had been left up to me, we wouldn't even had spring break.
I understand. I understand.
We've missed getting out of school a little earlier too.
The sad, unfortunate part for school-age children is this year we've been hit pretty hard with weather, snow
across the state,
snow, rain, floods, ice. It's just been one right after another, and it seems like we've had constant interruption. But you got state mandated testing coming up. Every day counts.
Yeah.
So
let's see here. I think there was one more thing here, but when I want to pull something up, it won't come up. Education Secretary Linda McMahon says, and you brought this up last week, Linda McMahon says that Maine Governor Mills has been placed under investigation for civil rights violations as a result of Maine allowing men to compete in women's sports. And you talked about that last week, about the governor of Maine, coming under some scrutiny because she's refusing.
Federal funding is basically going to be denied these people because they're not following the initiatives and executive orders of the president. Executive orders are law. They're mandates. You have to do them. You have, whether you agree with it or not, for that to change, it's going to take a different president. For 4 years, people put up with the initiatives of the Biden administration. So here's what I'm going to tell you. You may not, there were things that happened that we didn't like, but we did what? We lived with it. They're going to have to live with it.
Today, during his speech, talk with that Italian prime minister, Donald Trump says, Jimmy Carter died a happy man. Do you want to know why? Because he wasn't the worst president Joe Biden was.
Well, there's a lot of substantiated truth to that.
Oh, that's good. And that's why I voted for him too. He don't care what he says either. He don't let someone write his stuff for him. He just says it. Nora here had a question for you. Do you think the senator that went to El Salvador to bring home the immigrant violated the Logan Act?
So do you think he committed treason?
Well, I think so.
I mean, you know, I think it sends the wrong precedent in my personal view. I think if you are an American elected representative, you should be about the security and protection of citizens within your boundaries. If we're allowing dangerous individuals, and I know they're labeling this guy as mistakenly labeled a terrorist. He is a documented MS-13.
And that's all you
member.
need to know.
He is an illegal in this country. He beat his wife. He was not a family man. So, and I'm not saying that people don't make mistakes, but being a gang member that is now officially labeled as a terrorist organization doesn't bode well, Mike. He is not what the media is portraying him as. The media is portraying him as a Maryland man that was a good person that just happened to be in the wrong place, the wrong time, got identified, was not, and not a bad person. He is a bad man.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I can get you Department of Justice, DOJ documents that verify he was a gang member in 2019. So if you're a gang member in 2019,
you are now.
You're probably still a gang member.
Probably still are, yeah.
Because that's an organization I probably
once you
would
get
say,
in, once you
I'd
get
say
into,
your chance of getting out of there or what?
Yeah, it's very slim. When you get in, there's usually only one way out. But now they have been a few that
and there's a ritual initiation into it.
Yeah,
probably got to do something pretty violent.
You've got to do something wild to get in, and then you got to do what you're told the whole time you're in. That's right.
But the media, and like I said, it just
best thing a person could do is what you said a minute ago: is don't even watch TV when it comes to like news and stuff. Don't even turn it on, because you're either going to be flabbergasted and be so upset that you want to swing something out the TV because of the things that's happening, or if you're one of the people that's going to believe everything they say, you're going to be there.
Okay, let me read this to you. The Logan Act, she asked if we thought that he was in violation of the Logan Act. What actually is the Logan Act? Because a lot of people are probably sitting there saying, well, I don't know what the Logan Act is, right?
Right.
So the Logan Act is a U.S. law that prohibits unauthorized private diplomacy, which is basically the ability of me to go to a foreign country and negotiate on the part of the United States with foreign governments. It essentially prevents U.S. citizens from engaging in communications with foreign governments without the proper authorization of the U.S. government, especially when those communications are intended to influence a foreign government's decision in relation to a dispute with the U.S. or to defeat U.S. policy. Basically, Trump's got a policy in place that says if you're not here with legal documentation, you are being kicked out of this place. You're gone. All right. So did he violate the Logan Act? So basically, the answer is yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but will the media ever say he violated? No. But had he been a Republican, what?
Oh Lord!
Oh my God!
You would have known by now what the Logan Act was.
Yeah, they'd been calling for his head on a platter, saying, "Hey, this gentleman is violation of the Logan Act. He needs to be tried to the utmost responsible court that can hear this, and he needs to be given the greatest penalty possible."
The Logan Act would have been the most researched topic in the nation right now if it would have been the other way around.
Oh, I agree with that.
Bobby said he looked right at her and said it was coming if she didn't comply with the law. And she looked back and said, "You'll see you in court." And that's talking about the Maine governor.
Well, she's not going to win, because what I'm going to tell you is there may be an injunction placed on her state to allow her to do this until a federal judge rules. But if they follow the Constitution an executive order is an executive order. It's a law of the land. And if you follow the law and you are obedient to the Constitution, then there's no way that governor can do what she says she's going to do. Can't do it.
That's right.
And the people of Maine need to take visible view of what this governor is doing, and they need to let their voices be
She
heard.
said, Trump looked back at her and said, okay, that should be an easy one.
And it will be an easy one. It will, if the federal judiciary system is
What they should be.
what they should be.
Right, yeah.
And that's all you're asking them. Be fair, impartial, render a decision based on precedent. The law has already been established. So it's precedent. It's constitutional law. It's already in place. It's as good as gold. She's going to lose, Mike.
So I have to ask you, while we're still on the air, do you have plans on hunting Easter eggs this weekend?
No.
Because I saw a video of you a couple of years ago when you were still at the high school over here out there hunting Easter eggs. So
there was a magic egg out there that had $100 bill in it. Guess what? I wanted that $100 bill. I didn't find that $100 bill.
Well, you tell me there's $100 bill in an egg somewhere up in the woods, I'll probably be in the woods trying to find it.
Yeah. But
$100.
It is a special weekend. It's basically a week of observation for Christians around the world. It commemorates the resurrection of Christ. Not all people around the world observe Easter, but also kids around the world look forward to hunting eggs and
Easter bunnies.
Easter bunny and
yeah. I heard the word bunny about 25,000 times today, I believe. Even the cookies in the lunchroom had bunnies on them. So, there was bunnies everywhere.
But it's also a time to get together with your family, enjoy your family and their company.
I'm going to enjoy some really good talks with Bobby. She's still firing away here. See, she said he is risen. Is that how you say it, risen?
Yeah.
Okay, making sure I'm saying it right, or she will correct me.
Yeah.
She'll be like, all this time, you didn't say it right. But, she's right. That's what it is. Now, the only thing that really confuses me with Easter is that it changes every year. Like Christmas is on the same day and stuff. Last year, Easter Sunday was on the 31st of March.
So is it the last Sunday?
And then this year...
Well, how is it? What made it change so drastically?
Yeah, it's almost like a 3-week change at this point.
What made it change?
Are you still with us?
Yeah, I have no idea.
One of your sisters is still with us, still going strong.
Me and Michael had this conversation the other day. I don't know why it's so late.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It was March 31st last year, and that was 2.5 weeks ago, or almost 3 weeks ago at this point. And it's like, like Easter, like Thanksgiving is usually like around the same time of the year.
25th.
25th, somewhere down there. I think Christmas is always the 25th. Memorial Day is usually, there's some of them that, the dates change a little bit on. But Easter Sunday is like, it's not just like last year, it was on let's say the 31st, and this year it's on the 1st. It's off by 3 weeks. And that's what I'm thinking, what allows that to be that way? I could understand it if it was a few days kind of off, but weeks, it's just very late this year, but always follows a Good Friday.
Yeah.
And then there's Good Friday,
Yeah.
What makes Good Friday any different than March 30th of last year? And
I agree with you.
Tomorrow's the 18th of April. Yeah. So, what makes Good Friday be any different, when it comes to that? So I never did understand that one, but I'm sure we'll all be hunting some eggs. I'll find the lucky egg and send it your way. But don't forget these, man.
You have those.
You're gonna need those, man. If you end up somewhere you shouldn't this weekend, I'm gonna bring this with me and say, here's what it is. Because that would be red too.
Yeah, I see.
You got anything else?
No. Like I said, it's been an eventful week. Like I said, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of distractions to keep you preoccupied, to keep you off of certain information being released. I would suggest that people look into the Crossfire Hurricane documents. That you learn about who was involved in the Russian collusion, what they did to Trump, how they attempted to destroy his presidential campaign, tying him to Russia, stating that he committed fraud in the election, uh, and the people that were involved in it, the amount of money it cost taxpayers $32 million. Did Adam Shifty shift in all the Russian collusion and the investigation and all that stuff and the Mueller investigation. So I'm gonna look at you and tell you is taxpayers paid a great price for no apparent reason when there was no collusion. The collusion was some people within the government colluded to try to destroy a man's reputation and his presidential bid. It didn't work.
Yeah, this man he has to have a pair. Is all I can say because he's been drugged through every kind of thing
twice
that you could possibly think, and he's still going. He's still right here.
Shot.
I mean, he must be a strong individual, and what is he in his 70s? Ain't he? Pushing 80-year-old, I'd imagine. So he has to be a strong man to be able to put up with all the crap that he's went through over these years.
Well, the media, I say this, I think media corporations create a negative image of Donald Trump. He's not like what's that song by Lamar Kendrick? Not like us. He's not like them. He's different. He's got his own money. He's got his own agenda, and he's going to do what he needs to do to put America first.
I was just sent this. It says Easter's exact date varies so much because it depends on the moon.
The moon.
The holiday is set to coincide with the first Sunday after the Paschal full moon, which is the first full moon after the vernal equinox. Now, I mean, you're more the space person than I am, because you've been there on your little blow up, shuttle thing.
That's Matt.
Yeah.
Shuttle.
I wasn't going to be mean, but I think I will be mean. But, you've got the blow up shuttle thing. She's just got blow up other things. But, so we'll just worry about that at another time. I ain't got no sponsorship.
That's why you lost it.
Ain't got no. That's why I said we're here one night only, but it ain't even raining tonight, But I ain't even got no sponsorship. That's why I said I'm gonna have to go talk to your other sister here that's been on here all night. Try to get some sponsorship. Maybe I've set up over there. Do you got anything? No, what time do you think you'll be in here in the morning? I know Melina's still on here.
10.
And Melina's talking about the time change. I don't think it's going to change. Seemed like they passed that 2 or 3 years ago, didn't they? They was going to end daylight savings time or something other. We thought it was going to be the following spring or whatever, and it just keeps changing. It never did go anywhere. So
I do like getting up in the mornings, and when you drive to work, it's light outside. I like that idea, but when you get home, it's light in the evenings. But I hate that other because I just feel like the other just makes you depressed.
Goes to the moon every day.
I do go to the moon every day.
Well, when you take off here in a minute to go to the moon, make sure to leave us a big rainbow or something across the sky like E.T. did or whatever it was, when he shot across the sky. All right, so I'm not getting if this is how I treat my sponsors, Bobby said, I'm not getting the sponsorships.
I think the next 2 months will reveal a lot of things about this world. In the next 2 to 3 years, you'll learn it all.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
And like I said, more and more stuff.
We've come a long way right now. We're only 2.5 months in or whatever to this new administration and starting to learn a lot of things. I mean, we've learned about some silliness being spent overseas, like crazy things that they're sending millions of dollars over for. And I'm sure more of that's going to continue to come. But anyway, I reckon the store here that doesn't sponsor me, but anymore. But since you will be here at 10 o'clock in the morning, guys, I'm going to say this as easy as I can. Bear with her. She just got a big shipment of stuff in the other day, a lot of consignment stuff. So when you come through the front hallway there, you're going to see stuff all over the place. But do know it's She's not because she don't clean it up. You know, it's just
Every
that
time
was
I
the
go.
only place for the people to unload when they come in. So, don't think, she's just becoming, a big mess over here because, she is going through it. She's trying to get everything ready to put out. The more she puts out, the more she goes through, the more you'll start seeing the posts and stuff. You'll start seeing some of the newer stuff. If you're interested in a lot of things, just come in and check it out. She'll be here tomorrow. She said from 10, which will be about 10:30. But but she said 10 a.m. She is early for work now. I'll not this work, but the other work. I'll give her that. But so maybe we can get her involved with here that way. But she said she'd be here at 10 tomorrow. Usually Fridays is 6 o'clock. So depending on how many of you come in here, she'll stay here. She'll probably stay here to midnight tomorrow night if you come in here and keep buying. But um, with the sponsorship and stuff being gone, I still do. I probably still will end up mowing the grass out here. Try
You
to.
still get fed.
So I'm gonna try to go with it that way. I mean, that's might start mowing out front. How things are gonna go. But anyway, no, I'm just messing with everybody. Donnie McKenzie's visitation is tomorrow evening, 6 to 9 at the high school gymnasium. It's expected to have a enormous crowd. I mean, so if you do want to get there early, I would probably try to get there as early as possible to get in line because there's going to be a line possibly all the way down 191. I don't know which way they'll be putting people, but I'm sure there'll be a line a long, long way. And so if if that's something you're interested in going to, and I'm imagining most of you will, and I know all of us will be. We'll see you guys there. But Donnie's a guy that everybody definitely wants to go pay their respects to because he meant so much to all of us, and that's 6 to 9 tomorrow evening at the high school gymnasium. I think it'll go longer than 9 myself because the way that line's going to be, but we'll see. But anyway, guys, as Matt said, this is Easter weekend. Everybody, and if you do get a 3-day weekend, enjoy your 3-day weekend. If you don't, enjoy the weekend. It's Easter weekend. Enjoy time spending with family, hunting eggs, eating, whatever
Must
it
be
is.
pretty, I think.
Cookouts. Whatever it is you decide to do. Play some cornhole. Whatever it is you decide to do. Enjoy time with family, whatever. And we'll be back next week.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be 80 degrees next Thursday, so the possibilities are there. If it ain't storming or 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts, we might actually, make it to our first outside one of the year. We'll see. I don't know about last night. It's so cold. We'd froze there. But anyway, we'll see you guys next week. Everyone have a good Easter weekend and take care. Stay safe. And good night, everybody.